Good evening and welcome to the February 21st meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. I'm Joe Steiner and I am the chair of the Zoning Board. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In accordance with New Jersey Statute 10:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the newspaper of record and has been posted here at City Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. For the benefit of the interested public, this meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube page and also broadcast on Summit's government channel, which is Comcast Channel 34 and Verizon Channel 30. A transcript of this meeting is also being taken using the video and audio, so we need all speakers to utilize one of the microphones in the room. Please note that the fire exits are to my right, to your left, and at the back of the room where you entered. The city has a listening system to assist the hearing impaired. If anyone needs hearing assistance, please obtain the system here at the dais and return it thereafter. Ms. Soulios, would you please call the roll of the members?
Sure. Chairman Steiner?
Here.
Vice Chairman Loikitz is excused. Mr. Yuko?
Here.
Mr. Nelson?
Here.
Ms. Zahn?
Here.
Mr. Curran?
Here.
Mr. Malay is excused. Ms. Toth?
Here.
Ms. Chifo?
Here.
Mr. Feskins is excused. Mr. Chanchuli?
Here.
You have a quorum. You may proceed.
Thank you. Andy Ball is the zoning board's attorney. He's sitting right next to me on my right, your left, and he will advise the board members on matter of law. And I'm out of pages. I did this again. I got him out of the wrong place. And he will tell us what we have to do and how we'll advise each of the. This is really interesting. He is the key interface with the applicant's attorney. He does not vote on the applications. Stephanie Soulios is the city employee and is the zoning board secretary. She works with the applicants on preparing their applications and planning our agendas and keeping our meeting minutes. She also does not vote on the applications. Also present are two of our staff people. Marie Raffi is from Collier Engineering and is our board's engineering firm, and she is seated at the table to our right. The audience is left. Also seated at that table is Ed Snikes from Burgess, who is our planner. They provide input to the board, and also they do not vote on the applications. Our board consists of 7 regular members and up to 4 alternates. All members can participate in the hearings tonight, but a maximum of 7 can vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved. Before we enter executive session to vote on the application, we will once again tell you how many votes are required to pass the resolutions. Each case will begin with the applicant or their attorney giving an overview of the application to process and the process that's gone on to date and the variances that are required. We then hear from any additional expert witnesses that the applicant may have brought along to help explain the application and why the variances are needed. Board members may ask questions of the applicant, their attorney, and the expert witnesses. Once the board members and the board professionals have completed their questioning, the public will have an opportunity to tell us, to ask questions. This is not the time to tell us what you think about the case. That opportunity will come a little bit later. Before you ask your question, again, come to the microphone, clearly state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address. All of that's important that our court reporter is able to, God bless you, is able to keep a clear and accurate public record. After all of the witnesses have been heard, members of the audience now have their second opportunity to speak. And that time you may express your opinion, positive and negative, about the application. You will be sworn for that process. And then the public hearing is closed and we enter into executive session where the board members discuss the case and we vote. You will be able to listen to our executive session, but you will not normally be able to participate in our discussion. Krista Anderson, the city's zoning officer, has asked that we remind all applicants that they must read carefully the resolution that documents the zoning board's decision and pay particular attention to the conditions contained in the resolution. For example, if a landscaping plan is required, you must obtain one and submit it to John Linson, the city's forester. If a grading plan is required, you must have one prepared by a civil engineer and submit 3 copies along with the application fee to the city's engineering division. Failure to satisfy all the conditions in a resolution will result in a delay in approving your application, as it will cause extra work for the city zoning staff. The resolutions that document the board's decision will normally be available 1 month after we decide the case. We have 2 cases for hearing tonight. James and Lucy Nearing. Would one of you come forward and tell us how many witnesses you have? And again, using the microphone, and whether or not you think you can complete your case in 30 minutes.
All right, James Nearing, 28 Cromwell Parkway, Summit, New Jersey, Nering. We think we can do it in 20 minutes or 50 to 30 minutes, and we have no witnesses other than me.
Other than you, okay, fine, thank you very much. And the Thomas Holding, I believe our attorney is here as we carry this one forward.
Hello, Hillary Alls from Dempsey and Sheehan. Tonight we have 4 experts. We're calling back the engineer to go over some revised plans, and then the architect, landscape architect, and planner.
Okay, so we're going to be a while in
Yes.
this one. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, and well, so we will start then with the 28 Cromwell Parkway. If the Nearings would come forward, and our
We'd like
attorney
to
will
hold up
swear-
a,
Pardon?
We'd like to hold up a drawing, if
Bring
that's okay.
everything.
Can we put it on the table there?
We can put it there for now.
I'll be that way.
All right, and if you could please raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
James Nearing, Nering.
Thank you, and if I understand correctly, you are also a licensed engineer, is
Yes,
that correct?
that's
So
correct.
can you provide the board with your background and experience, please?
I've been an engineer since 1986. I've held various engineering positions throughout industry. Done a couple houses in the past, but my principal activity has been fire safety with Siemens Engineering.
Okay, and your license in New Jersey is active and still in good
Yes,
standing?
it expires in April 30th with the normal 2024 normal cycle time.
Great. Any questions from the board, or would you like to accept him as an engineer?
Any questions from any board members? Okay, then we will accept your credentials. Welcome, and please start the presentations. if you
Okay. We've been residents of Summit for over almost 38 years. We recently completed a renovation of our kitchen and bathroom, and we decided to put a sliding glass door out to the exit to the rear of the building, and we decided that it'd be nice to have a deck back there. So we're asking for a variance for rear setback. But the regulations are 40 feet. We have 42 feet in the back. We're asking for having that reduced to 22 feet so we can put the deck out. You can see here. The microphone. The deck will sit out the back of the house. It's 320 square feet. It's roughly 20 by 16. It covers an existing patio.
Can you hear him on
No,
that
I'm
side?
sorry, please talk into the microphone. Or you could even use the
Actually, you
one
can use the
that's-
handheld
yeah.
if you'd like.
You just have to turn it
This is
on.
our first rodeo here.
It's okay.
Is it on? We just want to put a 20 by 16-foot patio, rather deck across our existing patio, leave the patio in place. So we're asking for an exemption of the setback from 40 feet to 22 feet, and that takes us to a fence in the neighbor's backyard. The zoning officer had recommended that we pass out some pictures of the backyard, so you can see there's not too many obstructions or nearby buildings. So
While they're looking at them and passing them, I guess that's what's happening here. Can you tell us when the pictures were taken, who took them?
I took
And-
them. I took them just before it snowed, the second time,
Okay,
So it's
couple of weeks
a
ago?
couple days ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And do they truly represent, fairly represent the, what you're representing?
Yes, we looked at north, south, east, west, northwest, and southeast. So you can take a look at this way, and also that way.
Okay, and are all of those in that pile?
Yes, and they're
Okay,
labeled.
so we'll make the package A1? Okay, then those will remain with our secretary.
Okay. The patio is intended, there were some questions asked by Ms. Anderson, the zoning officer, and the patio is, first off, the date of the original survey was partially cut off in the lower part of the drawing. It was done on March 31st, 1986, when we bought the house. So it's the original survey for the house. We haven't done anything to the house except add air conditioning, widen the driveway. That's about it since we bought the house. There are no changes to the property which are not indicated on the submitted survey. The patio is intended to remain. If the deck were rotated by 90 degrees, as suggested by Ms. Anderson, it would leave a 20-foot long by 4-foot wide strip between the garden and the deck, which would be of limited use. So we kind of would prefer not to do that, but that would reduce the amount of setback exemption we're asking for. As I said, I've attached the photographs. Side screening of the generator was a question. We had a generator installed 2 years ago. When they repaired the window, they trampled down some of the side screening. It's our intention to replant that during the spring. Construction official, Mr. Maritato, asked for footing details. That's on the original permit application, which was submitted to the township several months ago. It indicated the railings were not shown well on the drawing. They are on the original drawings for the property, the deck. They're 36 inches high. They surround the deck, and they also both sides of both stairways have 4-inch baluster spacing. Environmental Commission, Ms. Ch, added we should put some native plantings around the deck. We've downloaded the suggested plantings list from the township, and then we intend to do that in the spring once the deck is completed. That's about all we have to say. It's a rather simple deck. We're just looking for exemption for the setback to the neighbor's property, and there's plenty of room back there. There's no other decks or structures for our neighbors that are anywhere near the deck. So we wouldn't be looking into somebody's backyard or somebody else's deck. So any questions?
Okay, let's begin, Ms. Marie.
So, just to confirm, you're not widening your driveway, that was.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you did have that question, and I have some responses for you also here. My paper's got a little jumbled, just like yours did.
Hey,
All right.
It
Hey.
happens.
Do you want me to just go through and flag the things that I was thinking of, that maybe that would,
Let me
that
just,
would work for us.
right?
yeah, go ahead.
So, on this survey, it sounds like this was your original survey, so just for the record, you're not increasing the driveway beyond what it is.
No, the driveway was increased under permit C-19, 2005, in 2019, so that was already done and it's complete.
Okay.
And just another point, I'm not affiliated with Casey and Keller.
I'm sorry?
I'm not affiliated with Casey and Keller.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
And, let's see, you're keeping the patio underneath, I think you
Yes.
testified to that, that was another question of mine. You know, since there's minimal additional square footage being added to the property, it doesn't trigger any seepage pits or anything. I think it was 67.
67 square feet, and it's permeable. There's slots between the decking, so it is permeable.
All right, I think that's all I have.
Okay. You didn't have it. Okay. Questions from the board?
Yeah, I have one question. You know, you noted Chris Anderson's comment about if he would rotate the deck 90 degrees, he wouldn't need a variance. And I heard
Well, I
you
would
s-
still need a variance.
Well, you wouldn't need the setback.
I would still need a setback
It would
variance.
still be a setback, it's just
Still
4
not,
feet, 4 feet less of a setback.
4 feet less.
Okay, 4 feet less than a setback. And you made some comments about why you didn't want to do that to
Right.
lessen. Could you say that again, maybe point to pictures and diagrams? I couldn't quite follow what you were saying.
Yeah, the deck was be built over existing patio, which is 20 feet from the house. So if we rotated it 90 degrees, it would be 16 feet from the house. There'd be a strip of cement here, the existing patio. It would be there'd be 20 feet long between the garden and the deck, and it would be unusable space for us.
Okay.
The patio is already unfortunately non-compliant. It was there when we bought the house. It was 1964, and and it was probably, I think Chris Anderson suggested that maybe you could give us a retroactive variance for the deck as it sits right now. That would be great if you could. We haven't really asked for that, but that would be nice.
You mean
So-
the patio?
The patio, sorry, yeah.
Well, the patio is a pre-existing non-conformity, so
Right.
that is not an issue. We don't need to grant a variance for that.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One, so you put the sliding door in?
Yes.
I mean, it would seem to me that that's not to building code right now without a deck underneath that.
Well, we were
Because
gonna
I
put
see you have a
steps.
piece of furniture there.
We're going to put steps down.
Right, but because you can't have like a sliding door that opens to a drop. Right now,
Right, right.
it opens to a drop.
We were going to put stairs down, but we thought the deck would be a nicer idea, so that's why we
Okay.
decided to go with.
And are you demolishing those steps that are there? Or
Partially.
are you putting the, deck, you're covering it with the deck?
We're covering the deck. We're partially taking it down so we can get the deck in.
And then as far as the installing this patio, to put in the footings and everything, you don't have to, you don't have to remove part of the patio? I'm just wondering, like,
We have
the
to
state of the
cut a hole.
patio is looking like it's probably not, I don't know if anybody walked back there, but it looks like it's not in, in great condition, and I'm just I'm thinking about, like, should you actually be removing that patio to put this deck in? Especially, it seems to me you're gonna have to break off pieces of it to put in footings for
Well,
your deck.
the contractor would drill a hole into these, they're 4.5 by 4.5 foot slabs that make up the patio, separated by 2 by 4s. I mean, that's the way it was built. So we're just gonna cut holes in the slab and drop the footing through the holes. But the rest of the patio beyond that is gonna look like it is now. It's not, we had no intention of changing it. Maybe not
Yeah,
look
it's
the
just
best.
gonna be a
but-
little bit of patio sticking out from your deck. Is that 8 feet?
About
6
8 feet, yeah. Which is, we like to keep a little bit of patio down there.
That's all my
Okay.
questions.
Any other questions? If if this were not to be approved, what would you said you were gonna put a stairwell down. Do we need, would there be a need for a variance, or what would he need in order to do that? Marie, do you know?
I'm not exactly sure.
I think it
Is
would,
are the steps considered part of the structure, or does it need a roof on it? Do you know that?
I think it would still be considered part of the structure as far as setbacks are triggered, but is that within the rear yard setback area?
Well, that's what it looks like on
It
here.
would still be an encroachment of the setback.
Okay.
By about 2 feet.
So you would need a variance either way.
Probably.
Yes.
Right. Our attorney says yes.
Okay.
And if it's a choice between the attorney and the engineer, we take the attorney. Can we, one of our standing conditions is that you would accept any and all of the conditions outlined on the engineer's letter. Is that acceptable? to you?
Yes.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Any questions from the public for this witness? Yes, sir. Come, you have to come forward. And, yeah.
Good evening. My name is Courtney Jeske. My wife's name is Ryan Jeske. We are residents at 32 Beekman. Jeske is Jeske, so we're your neighbors to the backside. I had some questions if in this process, I am not an engineer by any means. We moved to Summit 2.5 years ago because we thought it was a fantastic place to raise our 3 kids. We moved from Florida. We moved against the traffic up here to New Jersey, and we love it. We love the neighborhood. The 2 concerns we have and
This
questions.
should just be questions.
Questions.
At this point, we'll
Questions.
have an opportunity to weigh in opinions or
Yes,
concerns later.
exactly. Thank you, sir. Would be surrounding any kind of water runoff. We have an incredibly
Okay.
wet neighborhood.
Um,
And has that been analyzed or is that looked
Yeah,
at?
okay, I think our engineer, would you like to respond, or would you rather our engineers?
That's really the question.
I could respond. We're not doing anything that's going to alter the drainage of the property at all. Even the 67 feet is going to be permeable. So it's not going to be any worse than it is now.
Marie, you have anything else?
So I think there's some partial truth to the statement. I think Summit considers the deck as coverage that has to be mitigated for if it's over 300 square feet. They only have 67.5 square feet, so they don't have to mitigate for that with any stormwater measures. So, but I respect what you're saying, that it is a deck and the water's gonna, just go down through the deck. So,
Only 67 feet.
yes,
Right,
yes,
it's the only
right.
67 feet that matters.
So
Okay, does
the
that
patio
end-
is gonna remain, the deck is not adding any, is only adding 67 square feet out of the entire.
So he is not
space.
required to provide any mitigation. Any other, do you want, anything else, sir? Yeah. Question?
I'll try to make sure it's phrased as a question versus a comment, but in this application, I'm sorry, I couldn't see it from where I'm sitting. Has there been any privacy trees or anything considered in the application at this point?
We didn't because you have a fence back there. And so we figured that was pretty
Yeah,
private.
well,
Just talk into the microphone,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, go ahead. My question is there,
We certainly could add some trees, but there's a 6-foot fence behind the property now, which is Mr. Jeske's fence. So we didn't see any privacy issues, but maybe he does. We could do some plantings back there. That would be something we would certainly entertain if it's a concern.
Okay. So are we putting that in as a condition? Or
If the-
not?
If the board wants to see it as a condition,
Okay. I don't think
usually,
it's necessary, but that's my opinion, that's not anybody else's.
I agree. I don't think that should be a condition.
All right,
Right,
well,
see me-
Pretty shady.
What?
When the deck is built, and particularly because it's used in the summertime when there are leaves and a lot more coverage than there is today, wouldn't it make more sense to wait and see?
And for what it's worth, the forester had no objection. He
right.
thinks the
And
screening
our
is
forester
adequate.
is very careful on those things. He's extremely careful in looking at those things.
Well, there is, one tree that I think is probably gonna have to go because it looks like it's weeping over onto the, where.
That would have to be trimmed. The one maple tree would have to be trimmed, the one branch on it, yeah.
Yeah, because this one kind of looked more like a one-limb tree that was hanging over onto the patio.
Oh, the magnolia tree.
But, to the point of Mr. Jeske, this deck, what's the elevation of the deck?
44 inches.
So, your 6-foot fence is now cut down to 3 feet, right? So if you're standing up on the deck, I don't know, just to, acknowledge the other side of that is that certainly the view is going to be different from the backyard if you're standing on a deck that's 3.5 feet tall versus standing on the ground. So, I mean, a neighborly thing to do might be to, throw in a couple arborvitae back there, and whether that has to be a condition of it or not, but I can see the point of the neighbor.
I just have a
Yeah.
comment, but that, if you look, the one property, if you look at the way the property's laid out, it's the rear, looks like it's the rear of the property on Beekman is where the applicant's deck faces the rear. It's not like you're facing somebody's window, you know, it's not like you're house to house. Correct?
That is correct.
But the house on Beekman is closer to the road.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions from the public? Okay, you were the only witness, I believe.
Yes.
Do you have any closing statement for us?
No, other than, you know, we've lived in Summit for, as I said, 38 years. We like to age in place. We just did the renovation to the house, putting in ADA required supports and that. So we like to age in place. I think this prevents us from having to go down steps to get out into the backyard, and we can enjoy dining, private dining in the outside. So it's in compliance with the municipal land use laws for you know, improving the look of the property. I think it's, as the environmental commissioner said, it was a very desirable improvement to the property. That's all I
Okay,
have
so
to
you
say.
think that's the positive criteria?
Yes.
Do you think there are any negative criteria that we should be considering?
Other than what Mr. Jeske mentioned, I don't think there is. If he's, you know, worried about his privacy a little bit, I can understand that. But we're not exactly party people. You know, we're all over 70, you know, running around out there. But potentially, it's the next person who bought the house. You know, you don't know.
Okay.
Steiner, can I ask a quick question? I'm sorry, I should have asked before. Can I ask a quick question?
Okay, question?
The neighbor, is that the house that is, if you're looking at your house from the street, is that the gentleman to the right?
No, he's directly behind us.
He's behind you.
Which picture has that house in it? Let's make it easy.
Number 3.
Number 4.
Number 4?
He's due west from us.
Okay.
So actually, that's the
Yeah.
area.
We'll
No,
take
no.
those if you
We'll
come
take
up to
them when you
comment.
come up to comment
Okay.
and testify. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's that particular picture there.
Yeah.
This one and
Of all, I mean, not to make light of his concern, the neighbor to your right, which is actually facing Beekman, looks at your backyard all the time. So if anybody has a concern besides this gentleman, I thought that neighbor would too. But not to downplay your concern, I completely understand what you're saying. Thank you. Sorry about that.
And, Mr. Chairman, can I ask one question I meant to ask earlier? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
When I took a quick look at the property, I forgot to look at the generator, and I reminded the zoning officer to comment that the generator must be continuously screened with either a fence or dense landscaping. Is it screened now? Like I said, I forgot
It
to look
was
at it.
screened, but when we had to repair a window, and it got trampled down, the screening on the side. So the front is screened, but we have to put plantings on the side to account for that trampling down that happened when the window was fixed, and we're planning on doing that in the springtime.
Okay.
So as a condition, we would require that the screening be replaced
Yeah, that was addressed by
Within-
the representative
within
from
the years.
Collier,
Okay.
I
Well,
think, or maybe it was Chris.
Well, just- Chris Anderson?
Yeah.
Okay. Any, are we done with extra questions?
I have one question for, I think for maybe
We
for
are
Maria.
not.
Joe, I just was wondering about abandoning the stairs in place, essentially under the deck. Is this like code allows for that, like to just put a deck on top? Because those are like crumbling and, you know, as they are, you could consider it a hazard. You put a deck on top of it, I don't know, is that something that the,
Well, I'm thinking that in this case, I mean, this is probably more of a construction official kind of question. But, you know, the deck isn't very tall, and those steps being kind of, it sounds like he's taking off the top portion of
Yes.
the steps so that he can accommodate the depth of the deck stringers. So he's taking off the top portion of it. And, you know, there's really, I can't imagine what kind of hazard it could be underneath that deck, because it really is a low deck.
Yeah.
It might come to it that when he's taking it down, the whole thing has to come down, because it just, you know, starts to crumble, I don't know.
yeah.
Okay. And last chance for second questions.
Yeah. Quick question. So the map here, this the one you said that's original to when the house was done? Okay, because there's like the metal building, is that?
That's gone.
That's gone, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Now we will open, pardon?
Just clear
Oh.
my throat.
Now we will close the public portion of the, now we will go to public comments. So now you get to come forward and make any comments you would like. We will swear you in to begin.
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And then please state your name, spell your last name.
Yes, Courtney Jeske, Jeske, resident at 32 Beekman Road for almost 3 years.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just a few things in the public comment section here. First, I respect your guys' desire to want to expand out and have a larger porch in the backyard to enjoy the New Jersey summers. And my public comment would be, please approve that. One thing that I would say is, there's a few inaccuracies that I heard in the comments about the visuals and the spatial distance between the two properties. Our property is perpendicular to the Nearian's property, right? So when they're coming directly back, I have an aerial photo here that shows that is coming directly back to our porch. That has been there where we spend a lot of time. And the tree cover, I don't know where the forester is, but while they're very mature trees are what? They're very grown at the top, but they are thin below. And we can see directly from our porch into the construction. In fact, my wife commented, you have a beautiful hood that you've installed. So I would ask that a part of this approval process, however it gets done, again, I'm not an expert in the space, so I apologize, that there be some consideration about planting some privacy if they're going to be moving their late night parties closer to our house. And yeah, you're gonna be annoyed more by my 3 daughters than that. But I just think it would be nice visually when I'm on my back porch for them not to see in. And we are, with respect to a 6-foot fence, our patio is up probably 24, 30 inches, and they're building one that's up as well. So when we're standing, I'm looking at them just as clearly as I'm looking at you. So the 6-foot fence does nothing to block that view. So I hope this gets approved in your process that you have to do. I would ask for not only neighborly privacy, but something to be put into it to ensure that it happens. That's all I have to say.
Would you like to submit those photographs that?
I would. Yep.
Okay, these would be, what, 01?
Yeah.
Should I give them 2? I just have 3 copies.
Okay, it's one photograph?
Just one photograph, an
Okay.
aerial photograph. The red dot indicates approximately where the porch will stick out. The aerial photo also allows you to see where our deck is behind. And again, it's a different kind of layout because our houses do not butt up against each other, right? Mine goes back and theirs comes in from the side.
I'm just gonna wait until they. Is that different?
No, it's the
No,
same.
okay.
I'll just keep
Okay.
this one out.
Keep one. Keep one now. Oh, have another. Okay, are there anything else to add on the picture? Any questions generated from the picture? Okay. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Anyone else from the public that would like to be heard on this matter? Seeing none, we go to conditions and votes.
So we have 2, and then the question about a 3rd condition. First is, as noted, compliance with the conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum. Second is that the applicants will replace the screening around the existing generator in compliance with the zoning ordinance. And, the open question is, and I know the applicant said they would be willing to supplement the screening if necessary. Do we want to consider an additional condition, something along the lines of the applicants will add screening between the rear neighboring property to be submitted and approved by the city forester?
Well, what are the thoughts?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think, Mr. Jeske made his point clearly, and it's, current and future. You never know who's living in a house, and I think, the Nearings are amenable to add some sort of planting, so seems like there's agreement there, and it would be the right thing to do, to add as a condition.
Are you willing to accept that condition?
Pardon me?
Sir, are you willing to accept that condition?
Yeah, I just want to know how tall the trees are.
Yeah,
I
that's.
was just gonna say,
yeah, that's
because
what
the
I was gonna
the
say then.
fence is 6 feet, so it's gonna have to be higher than 6 feet.
And the trees. Three big trees.
Yeah.
I'm lost.
Well, if it's not higher than 6 feet, it's not gonna do any better job than a fence.
Right.
Time.
So how high would these have to be?
That's up to you.
And no, it's
Can't we
not up
make
to
it up
me,
to
it's
the
up to us.
forester?
Yeah.
Can't we make it up to the forester?
Yeah, so,
Ah.
supplemental screening to be
To
proposed
be
and to
submitted and
be
approved by the city
forester,
forester, John Linson.
and
So
presumably.
you'll meet with John before you buy them and make sure that John's on.
But since Mr. Linson had no objection to what's there now, should we add some specificity and say we want something taller than the current fence?
Well, I don't know that we want to do taller. I mean, let's talk about what the real objective is, which is to provide screening between the neighbor with the raised patio and the applicant with the raised deck. So that then the forester knows what the concern is, rather than trying to dictate the outcome.
Yeah, but if it's not taller, they're still gonna see.
He'll know that too.
Okay.
Well, yeah, arborvitae can grow 4 feet a year, so if you put in an 8-foot one in a year, it's 12 feet, and it might not do the screening the first year. It might take a little bit of time to provide.
Okay.
My only concern with the screening is if there's already mature trees there, will they get enough
Again, that's,
sunlight to grow? Sunlight.
That's Mr. Linson's department.
Okay, yeah.
Say,
so-
we can't get
So
anything
let's
to grow
let
back
Ms.
there now because of
Ah,
the tall tree. Oh, sorry.
We're in executive session,
Yeah.
sorry.
So we should base that on the expertise of the
Of the
forester.
forester, yes.
Very good.
Okay, can you read back what we got now?
Yes, so, the third condition then is that the applicant shall supplement the screening in the rear of the property between the applicant's property and the rear neighbor property. And, sir, what was your address?
32 Beekman.
Okay. With that particular property, to be reviewed and approved by the city forester.
Okay. You've heard the conditions and the number of votes needed?
There's only a C variance involved, so 4 out of the 7 voting members would need to approve the application.
Okay. Who would like to open up discussion on the entire case, not just our forester issue?
Ooh, I'll jump in with both feet because I love the Cromwell, Nassau, Blair neighborhood. And although it's not part of this application, thank you for not blowing up your house. It's just, I mean, that neighborhood is just such a slice and it's changing so fast, so I'm glad you're keeping what it is. And I think that this is extraordinarily modest addition to your home. I love the idea of aging in place, and I applaud you for doing that. That's what we want in Summit. And, we appreciate your neighbors' concerns. I was impressed when I tromped around your backyard, how much space there really is between your home and the neighboring houses, given the size and the density of the houses in your little development. So I think that this really is an enhancement, while continuing the look and the feel of the neighborhood. I think you've been extremely accommodating to your neighbor, and I can certainly support this application.
Okay, anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, just add that, I mean, I agree it's a reasonable application, it's a very modest addition, and I think we can approve it without having any significant negative impacts on the neighbors or any aspect of the neighborhood, especially with the addition of the screening.
I think with the compromise that we have put together with the neighbor and the applicant, and relying on our forester, that we will get the right result, and I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Sure. Chairman Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Ms. Zahn?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Ms. Toth?
Yes.
Ms. Chifo?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Well, good luck with your project, and may I remind you to read the resolution when it comes. No, it'll be about a month. It'll come here, and we will approve it, and then it'll come to you.
Can I ask one other question?
I'm sorry?
Can I submit my permit now?
No, not until after the resolution.
Yeah, you need the resolution for the building permit.
Yeah.
Okay, Thomas Holding is coming up.
You know what you're doing. I don't know. Andy.
That's this big one here. Ooh.
It's really
Ready?
Yes.
It's all yours.
All right. Good evening. I'm Hillary Alls from Dempsey and Sheehan, representing the applicant Thomas John Holdings LLC regarding property located at 502 Morris Avenue and 5 Lowell Avenue, Block 502, lots 3 and 4 in the R6 and B zone districts. This application was last heard at the December 4th, 2023 Board of Adjustment meeting. So 2.5 months have passed, and it looks like there's some new members on the board that were not at that meeting, so I've prepared a brief introduction. The applicant, Mr. Pamplone, is a longtime Hilltopper whose business has been serving Summit and the surrounding communities for over 35 years. He has operated his painting business out of the subject property for the last 12 years as a tenant and now owner. Mr. Pamplone is committed to investing in this community through the thoughtful improvement to this site, which has many challenges. His goals were to make the site functional for his business while also improving traffic safety, off-street parking, circulation, and drastically improving the aesthetics of the site by upgrades to the facade of the building, proposed upgrades to the existing garage, which is in a state of deferred maintenance, eliminating excess curb cuts, and installing significant landscaping, which will provide an increased planted buffer between the subject property and the adjacent residential neighbor, and improving the curb appeal by beautifying the streetscape on Morris and Lowell Avenues. As Mr. Pamplone testified, Lot 3 was purchased in 1947 and used as city auto top until 2018. In 1949, the second-story residential apartments were added, and in 1952, Lot 4 was purchased. The non-conforming garage was constructed in 1966 and has been used in connection with the commercial use since its construction. These two pieces of property have functioned as one site, and this application will formalize the long-standing interrelationship of these two lots through the consolidation of the lots as specifically requested by the zoning officer. The consolidation of the lots will not remove the zone line, which creates the need for certain variances previously stated and which will be described by the applicant's experts. This proposal will upgrade an existing substandard property by improving the overall aesthetics of the site, promote public safety by the improvements to ingress, egress, site circulation, and provision of adequate off-street parking in an organized manner while preserving the existing character of the surrounding neighborhood and provide for stormwater management on a site that currently has none. The applicant and civil engineer previously testified on December 4th. The civil engineer, Bill Hollows, is here tonight to present a brief summary of his testimony and also to testify with regard to revised plans based upon comments received by the Union County Planning Board. Following Mr. Hollows is the architect Mike McNerney, the landscape architect John Olivo, and the planner Michael Tobia. So if there are any questions for me, I'm happy to respond, and if not, then I would ask that Mr. Hollows be sworn to testify.
I think just we should put on the record that those board members who either were not on the board or who were absent for that hearing have either read the transcript or watched the video, or in some cases, both. So, you know, the board is fully up to date on what happened prior. So, but thank you for your overview as well.
Excellent.
And let's go ahead with your
Okay,
first witness.
so he's been previously qualified.
Yep, I'll just note again for the record, Mr. Hollows was previously sworn, remains under oath, and his credentials were accepted at the last hearing.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Go ahead.
The drawing that I have in front of you is sheet 2 of the drawings that you have. What we've done, and this has been noted as A3, and it's a colorized version of sheet 2. And it shows what's there today. If you were to drive out there today, this is what you're going to see. You've got the existing 2-story masonry building with a cantilever entranceway in the back of it. You've got the garage that's in the northwest corner of the property, and adjacent to that garage is a frame shed. Behind the building, you've got a little paved parking area. And in front of the building, and on Lowell Avenue, you've got some curb cuts and some paved area. You've got paved area across the front of the building, and then you've got some gravel that has been used in the past for parking areas. And what you've got out there is very limited landscaping, if any. You've got a few trees in the back of the property. You've got a little bit of lawn on the south side of the building. And you've got a rather haphazard parking system out there now where you've got cars parking in tandem. There's 2 apartments on the upper part of this building, and then you've got a small office in the front. And again, it's very limited landscaping, not the most attractive building on Morris Avenue. And we're trying to make it more attractive and a little bit more functional. A lot more functional.
This whole set's going to be submitted to the board as, because it's colorized, and what we
Yeah,
have is not.
these are both marked. I just, knowing that we
they've
had
been
another
marked?
meeting, I took them back to my office rather
They've
than.
been
leave
marked
them here.
before?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the last hearing.
Okay.
This is
Better
A4.
double check.
This is A4, which is sheet 3 of the drawings that you've got in your package. And again, we've got, the building doesn't change. There's no additions other than a more compliant stairway off the back of that second story opening to the building. The garage is still in the same place. We have moved the shed forward into a lawn, what will be a lawn area. We have eliminated the paved parking on the side of the building, closing those curb cuts. We now have a walkway that goes from the back parking area, which I'll speak to in the very near future, a walkway that comes around to the front of the building. We're maintaining that front garage door, and there'll just be a decorative paver driveway in that portion. We've got a parking area now. We've got 17 parking stalls, one of them being a handicap stall. We've got 6 tandem parking stalls in this area, and that is for the commercial business, for the vehicles. You'll hear more about that. And you've heard it before as far as the initial testimony. On the garage, we're going to add a dormer to the back to kind of balance the building. If you've looked at it, it's kind of out of balance. So you've got a dormer off what we call the front. We're going to put a dormer off the back of the building. And there will be extensive landscaping along the addition to the rear, addition to the side, addition to the front, and down northerly property line, there'll be additional landscaping, and you'll hear about that in a few minutes. I think, and we're making it, again, we're closing these curb cuts, we're making this more compliant, we're gonna have a stop sign there, so that the traffic flow, or if someone comes in, and then they can go back out, and they're gonna come out on Lowell Avenue. If they come out to Morris Avenue, it's a safer area than these curb cuts that used to be on the front of the building.
Excellent. And have there been any revisions to the filed plans dated June 15th, 2023?
There have.
And can you describe the changes to the plans?
Since that last meeting, I revised the drawings in accordance with the Union County Engineering Office. And I also had the lighting consultant take a look at the plans, because we had the hot white lights, 4,000 to 5,000 K, and they've been reduced to 3,000, which is a much more softer white light.
And compliant with the ordinance?
And compliant with the ordinance. The ordinance was 3,500, which they don't make these types of lights in 3,500, so
Okay.
we're at 3,000.
Sorry, I'm just gonna jump in. So this is sheet 4 of 5.
This is
and
sheet 4 of 5.
What is the date of these plans?
It has been revised to January 31st, 2022. You don't have these drawings.
So this
I
will
didn't
be
want to confuse
A5.
everyone with these drawings, because these are just specific to Union County requirements that I did. And, you know, I believe I testified, the original plan has some dry wells in this area at the corner of Lowell and Morris on the south side of the building. When we got the letter from the county, it appeared to me, reading between the lines in our engineering language, that they wanted something different. So we've got what we call infiltrator system. It'll be in the lawn area. You have a drain inlet in the parking area, goes to the detention system, and then it'll come out at a slower rate into an outlet structure, and then into a storm drain that's already in Morris Avenue. And I kind of alluded to that in my testimony on the 4th of December, that that was going to change, just based on, because I'd gotten a letter from the county. And the other thing for the county, really, they wanted brand-new concrete sidewalk and brand-new granite block curb on Morris Avenue. Those are really the items that the county wanted. I thought it'd be confusing if I shot some new, or gave you some new drawings. I think that we'll hear back from the county. We can do everything at one time, and hopefully if the board approves this application. The other thing I did, well, again, this is the lighting plan, which is sheet 5, revised on January 31st. You don't have it. You have the hotter lights. These are the soft white lights. And we have some spillage onto Lowell Avenue, and also onto the Enterprise Auto Rental building to the north of us. And that was the spillage on the Enterprise Auto Rental building went down a little bit when we changed the light. It's a 1/10 of a foot candle, which less than the moon would give us on the property. I doubt that they would even notice it.
And can you show the location of where that is?
Yeah, that's right here. The light fixture is in the parking stall, I don't remember the number, but towards the back of the site on the north side. And it's just that one little spot adjacent to, it's in their parking lot. And then down along Lowell, we had that spillage before, it's just been reduced a little bit.
So can I interrupt for a second? I want to use a question to Mr. Hollister wants to answer it. Are you testifying that this eliminates need for the lighting variance, or it modifies it, or what are you saying?
So originally there was a variance for the color of the light, you know, the illuminate, color
color,
temperature,
yeah.
so that one's being eliminated. We still need a variance for spillage off the property line, but now it's less than what was originally proposed.
Okay, should we condition that the zoning officer verifies the lack of need for the brightness or the Kelvin rating or whatever?
I don't know that that's necessary. They're testifying that they're gonna give the 3,000 Kelvin, which
Okay.
is within the range of the
Okay.
ordinance, so I think that's relatively clear.
And then I just want, do you want to mark those as A5 and A6 or no?
I believe that's what we're up to, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yep.
And then just to confirm the testimony from the last hearing, will the applicant comply with the engineer's report as a condition of approval?
That would be correct. I believe I testified to that, but that would be correct, and that would be including the new drainage system and the new lights. But everything that's in that letter and then what we're going to
Have
send.
you seen the new drainage system?
No, in fact, Mr. Hollows and I were talking about that today because there was a little confusion from the last meeting. I was unclear about what was happening with the infiltration system. And just to confirm, he's removing the proposed seepage pits that were on the corner of the property
Right.
on Lowell and Morris. That's coming out. And he and I spoke about this today, that I haven't reviewed those calculations. So, you know, it depends on what the board wants to do, but if you were inclined to approve this, you know, you should probably have that as a condition, that I would look at the volumes and make sure that they were sized properly for that area. It sounds to me like that was a Union County comment that came back. So he's actually switching out the collection of the water from the roof. He's now not collecting it from the roof, he's collecting it from the driveway, the parking lot itself. So, no, the answer is no, I have not reviewed the calculations because they've not been provided at this point.
And it's a different method of operation because the one's tank and this thing's an infiltrator.
Yes, but they act in the same way. These infiltrators, we discussed them, they're like an upside-down bathtub, really. So they can be more shallow, they're more adaptable to be used in a more shallow situation. So I don't see that there would, you know, be a problem with sizing them properly. But to answer your question, I did not review them because I don't have those calculations.
Okay. I guess we continue and get that
I
later.
assume that condition, that those calculations
Yes.
would be submitted for review and approval is acceptable.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. I don't know if there's any questions for Mr. Hollows.
Okay, questions for Mr. Hollows? That's it.
So this infiltration system, can you build over that?
That's why it's in the lawn. You can actually, you can drive over them,
That's what I
but they have to
mean.
have a certain depth to it, which that does happen in this instance, but it's not intended that anyone, there's a curb line that would stop someone from driving over them. And then there's going to be a fence that was on the original plan.
Right.
We're just gonna raise that to 7 feet, but that's from the corner of the building towards the property line. So it really wouldn't behoove anyone to really try to park there.
It's kind of leading up to another question for, I think, a different expert, so.
Okay.
But anyway, is that because of the soil conditions there, or the type of,
The soil conditions generally in this area
Are
are
clay?
poor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right, thank you.
Any other board questions? Any questions from the public?
Can I, before you open to the
Okay, go
public,
ahead.
can I just, I just want to make sure I clarify. I made the comment that you were removing those seepage pits on the corner of Lowell and Morris, but could you just confirm that? So that
Oh,
we-
yes, that is a definite. These,
Okay.
the original plan had the seepage pits in this area, which were shallow too, but, because we need to be able to get into the storm drainage system. But, they were going to be removed in an additional landscaping order, just landscaping proposed for that area.
So, if I may, Chairman, so why aren't we catching the roof runoff?
We are.
Oh, you are?
It's not good.
It's
We're
not going
catching
to
more
that?
than our increase in impervious coverage. The roof leader drains, as proposed, would go into the storm drain.
Okay, I see, okay.
I hadn't mentioned that, but it's a good catch.
Any other questions from the public?
I just had a question about the number of parking spaces and how they're counted, and I'm not sure if that's a question for you or for, you know, one of the other
Well, I did this
witnesses.
plan, so it's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
question for me.
So, first of all, the handicap space, the space next to it that's crosshatched, that's also 8 feet wide.
That's not a space, this is van accessible.
Okay.
So it's a little bit larger than your typical.
So it's like that, because that space, the whole space is probably 16 feet wide, so it looks almost as if it could be used as an additional parking space. So I just want to make, just want to.
That's certainly not the intent, it's just,
Right.
when you have one, you do a van accessible one, so it's larger than your typical.
Yeah, it just looked
In the
wider than the typical space that you see for the van accessible, so like wide enough that it could potentially be used as another parking space, and I just wanted to clarify that it will not be used as a parking space. Is that,
But
and then,
That's the intent.
and then also next to the building, because there's pavement there, to me, there's a parking space there that could actually be, it's 8 feet wide, it's 30 feet long, that space. That's not gonna be used for parking either?
It's not intended to, because the stairway's
I
gonna be.
mean, you can pull past it though, like if you're, the way this the reason I ask is the way this parking is being proposed is that the vehicles are gonna be parked in tandem. So theoretically, you're gonna be moving vehicles in and out. If you need to get the vehicle in the front out, because that's the one somebody's driving, you could do the same thing. People do that in their driveway all the time. I'm just trying to get a better understanding of how many actual, is it really 17 spaces, or is that a space
And
too?
17 spaces, and they're gonna be striped with hairpin striping.
And that area looks pretty narrow, right?
It's 8
Where-
feet.
Where she's talking.
You could park a car there. So that's why
Well, that's
I just want to make sure,
not-
this space
not
right
the
here, it
intent.
says 8 feet on my drawing.
If it's possible
Yeah.
to park a car there, how are you going to prevent a car from parking there?
My feeling when I did it was that the stairway is the one that prevents you from going in there.
But there's no curb there, so you could, I mean,
No,
you're talking
it-
about driving over a painted line,
All
which,
right. But would the architect perhaps have it? Who actually put the lines on the paper for this? You?
No.
Sorry.
You to me.
Okay.
I mean, we could put, right, no parking, a no parking sign.
We all know what they do.
And that kind of leads me to another question for parking, if you're complete?
No.
Okay.
Parking in Summit is
Yeah.
not a spectator sport.
The reason why I asked about the depth and driving over that filtration system, one of the comments that I saw during the video and when I read the transcript the other day, is that you claim that the parking for those commercial vehicles is going to be hidden. Is there any way, and what I'm concerned about is, and I kind of, when I was over there I drive by this site 10 times a day. I live down in that part of the area. Lot 21 on Lowell Avenue, which is directly across, it would be across Lowell, the last house before Magic Fountain. Yes, they look directly into that yard, the backyard of this proposed plan. Is there any consideration given to moving those tandem parking spaces more forward? So that those vans are hidden from the neighboring
I
residences? You might eliminate one spot at the top, so you'd only have 16. The vans are more, pushed up more. And that leads me to the question about what's the wood structure shed for? Landscaping equipment, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I may have missed that in your video and the transcript, but I'm just curious as to why that wasn't given consideration. Or was it, and you decided this is the best
I
outcome?
decided, yeah, when I put it together, I thought that this was the best way to do it. And I think, why don't we, I'll be here, but why don't we listen to the landscape architect and see
Okay.
what, if he has
Yeah,
some comments on
You're
that.
trying to
Wasn't sure if it was
maximize your parking. I mean, let's
Right.
be honest, if they want 17 spots, and this is the way to get it.
No,
I
get
have
it.
one more question about that, which reminds me, because this was in the last meeting and sort of a continuation of that. But space 17, I think it's, 11, sorry, 11 looks like it's sized for a commercial vehicle. I know that Summit only allows like 3 commercial vehicles. The proposal is talking about 6. This actually looks like that space for a 7th. It's wider, it's the same length. Can you speak to that? And is there, you know, I'm concerned that, again, once you put the space there and you say for a commercial vehicle, that there will be another vehicle there. I mean, we do tend to use up all the spaces we have, right?
So there might be a regular sized vehicle, but the variance that we're requesting is for 6 commercial vehicles. So that's supposed to be for,
I feel
A
like that
regular
space
size.
should be for a regular sized vehicle then. and
that's the
not-
intention.
Well, I think the space should be smaller. I think that'll be, I guess, for later discussion.
Can you reduce the size?
Yeah, I made these parking stalls 10 feet wide just because we're doing a commercial vehicle, but I could make this one 8 and just bring this curb in. I'm sorry, 9, your typical 9-foot stall, 9-foot wide stall.
Okay, any other questions from up here?
I have a question. In front of parking spot 11, it says lawn area on,
So that's supposed to be removed. That was a comment from the engineer's report. So
Okay.
we've agreed to remove that. It just was a carryover from,
okay,
From
just
the
checking.
drawing
Yeah.
before that.
Okay, anything else? Yes, sir.
Just one question. There was a sort of an open-ended question at the last meeting regarding the floor area ratio. Has that been calculated?
it has, and the architect will testify to that.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ed, I forgot to go to you. Go ahead. Anything
okay.
else? Is that the
That's
only
all I
one?
had.
Okay.
Thank you.
I went to her and I forgot to move on. Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Is there, I don't even know if there is any public. Okay. Okay, let's move on to your next witness.
Okay, Michael McNerney.
All right, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
My name is Michael McNerney, MC, capital Nerney.
Thank you, and can you briefly describe your background and experience for the board?
Oh, I'm an architect. I went to got my degree from university, and I received my architect's license in 1990. And I've been, worked for various firms until around 2000, and then I've been on my own since.
Okay, and licensed in New Jersey?
Licensed in New Jersey,
Okay.
yes.
Any questions from the board, or would you like to accept his credentials?
Any questions? None? Please proceed.
All right, can you explain the steps that you've taken to prepare yourself to give expert testimony?
Yes, I initially met with the client, went out, visited the site, and drew up existing plans of the site. Then reviewing the ordinances and administrative, I prepared a set of plans. I guess
Excellent.
that's about it.
And with regard to the building on Lot 4 and the garage on Lot 3, I would ask if you could go through your plans and explain to the board the existing and proposed conditions and
Okay.
highlight the proposed changes and upgrades to each structure.
Okay. The existing, the building on Lot 4 is mainly as existing. Interior. At some point recently, we did an upgrade with the interior. We improved the fire rating between the first floor and the apartments on the second floor. And had added, I believe, added fire alarms, smoke alarms, that type of thing. As far as that, the interior is existing. The exterior, we'll be adding a staircase in the rear. We remove the old stair, and then we're providing a newer staircase that's more code compliant. Right, I think the plans had showed two options. We're going to be going with option A, which is shown on this plan here.
And the garage on lot 3?
Okay, the garage on lot 3, let's see if I get that. Okay, the garage on lot 3 is more initially existing-wise is in disrepair. So it more or less needs some, a slight upgrade, some loving care. It needs, it'll need new garage doors, new roof, painting, and possibly new windows if necessary. So as far as existing.
Okay, and is the footprint staying the same?
Yes, the footprint stays identical. Nothing is changing that way. The footprint is currently 24 feet in depth, 30 feet in width. A total of 720 square feet is the footprint. I believe that is more than what, is the residential requires for that. And, well,
So it's a pre-existing non-conforming
it's a pre-existing
structure.
non-conforming use.
Structure.
Yes, structure.
It's okay.
Thank you. With the project, we are going to, it becomes an accessory structure. And as a result of that, the accessory structure is only allowed to 576 square feet, I believe,
Correct.
of ground space. And so because of that, because of the change to an accessory use, we're going to have to get variances for square footage, for depth, for the dimensions as well. Also, the existing structure is 17 feet, I've got 17.4, but I think in here you were saying 17 feet 5 inches high. And again, as existing, it's not conforming because it doesn't meet the height requirements. For the R6 zone, it's 5 feet, 15.6, right?
15 feet.
15 feet in height, okay, thank you. And so, again, becoming as an accessory structure, it will have to meet. And also we're getting into the newer stuff. The new work on this would be, we're going to be adding a dormer to match the dormer on the existing side.
And what's the
opposite
square
side.
footage of that
The square footage,
additional space?
the second floor loft space existing is 76 square feet of usable space. And we're going to be adding a 64 square feet dormer to it. Let's see, what else we got? The new dormer, the plan was to match the existing dormer, mainly just to provide a little additional headroom up there, because it's a little tight. And structurally, it works best to build a dormer off the existing dormer. I can put a ridge beam down the middle and support everything that way.
And what's the existing floor area of the garage?
Existing floor area of the garage is 796 square feet.
And the proposed floor area of the garage?
Well, okay, floor area of the garage with the dormer brings it up to 860 square feet.
860 square feet.
Yeah.
And accessory structures under the ordinance only permits a floor area of 576 square feet, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And with regard to the overall FAR for the site, what is the FAR for Lot 3?
The required FAR,
Proposed,
okay,
yeah.
the required FAR for Lot 3 is 75%, and Lot 3 with the garage and the dormer is 37.27%.
And for Lot 4?
For Lot 4, it's 35% is permitted, and With the building, it's 13.06%.
So you comply with FAR
Yes, I comply with,
lots.
yes. If you were to combine the lots and, you know, figure out a new FAR for that, it would come in at 27.6
Excellent.
percent.
And can you describe for the board the existing signage and what is proposed?
Sure. Okay, the existing sign, you can see in this picture up here, well, that's the old sign. The existing sign, I'm sorry, is just to the right of it. The existing sign is currently 4 feet wide by 4 feet 10 inches, and it's, the bottom of the sign is at 10 feet 7 inches. The new sign, it's currently a hanging sign off the side of the building, and it's internally illuminated. The new sign, we're planning to match roughly the same dimensions. It's going to be an oval, but again, it's going to be 4 feet wide by 4 feet 10 inches high, and again, planned to be a hanging sign off the side of the building.
And does that, the proposed signage require variance relief?
Yes, it does. Because it's a hanging sign, it requires variance. Because it's, the character of the little painter is over 30 square inches. Again, that, I believe, requires a variance. Also, the height of the sign. Since the sign is above the, above the first floor, a variance is also required.
And can you tell the board the reason for selecting a sign of this type and size and what the benefits are of the sign that's proposed?
Well, the idea was to keep the same continuity of the type of sign that has been there for all the years, and to match it as best we can. It's also an illuminated sign. The sign colors are up here. It would be white with like a red border. The reasoning of being higher, keep it exactly kind of the same as it was, is that it's mostly all glazing and doors down below that would be difficult to hang a sign from there. The fact that it's a hanging sign, it's perpendicular to the building, in respects actually provides more visibility as you drive by, and also, and to some degree, I guess, is a safer way. You're not turning your head trying to read signs as you're driving.
Excellent. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, questions from staff first?
Oh,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. You had mentioned the building has been recently upgraded. Is there any other changes being made to the two-story building?
no,
Oh, okay.
no.
It's gonna stay
Just
where it
just the stair.
is? Okay. Right rear stair.
It
Yes.
was painted though, right?
Uh,
Outside and.
Oh yeah, they had been painted in the past, yes.
Okay. I imagine being a painter will take care of it. I'm sure. Regarding the sign, you had mentioned that the existing one's internally illuminated, the proposed one is internally illuminated
Yes.
as well?
Yes.
And it will match, it's always hard to describe this, but yet its brightness. How will it be internally illuminated? Will it be an LED type of system? And is that going to be a reasonable level of lighting? Just trying to get the applicant to understand that.
Okay,
That's
I understand.
something
Right, that's something I have not thought of.
Yeah,
So-
in regulations, we don't currently have a brightness aspect of our regulations, but it's always something we ask the applicant to consider.
Right, and nowadays with LEDs.
Correct. You can get very bright.
You can get very bright, yeah.
That's something to consider.
Okay.
I think you answered my question on FAR, thank you very much. The garage space, when you calculated, and also I would ask you to submit your calculations so that we can review them as well as
Okay.
Krista. And I imagine at this point, you're presenting that to the board with the understanding that they're correct. And if there's any changes that, if the board was to act favorably, you would need to come back
Okay.
in order to confirm that. But that's because we haven't seen the information ahead of time. I just wanted to inform the board of that. And so when you did the calculations for the garage, you added for the dormer.
Yes, I
you
did.
calculated that 7-foot area, the 7-foot height area as required by the code.
Oh, for the space in the loft area? Yes, yes, I did.
And you're not raising the height of the ultimate ridge line.
No, I'm not. That stays existing.
Thank you. No further questions.
And
I-
you just mentioned a potential submission of those calculations. Who would be reviewing them, do you think?
I would imagine Krista would.
Okay.
Because she is most proficient at that.
And I am,
Does this make 2 items that we have not had submitted to us? prior?
stormwater calculations and garage
And
calculations.
this should have been, right? That we've had these for a long time, right?
Yeah, it's something that they were going to provide to the board, I guess, tonight.
And it didn't happen. So we now have 2 items that we're delayed on.
Yeah, the only
And
thing-
I'm questioning whether or not this should continue.
Yeah, I would say the risk would be theirs, if they're presenting that this is their calculation and it's right. And if it's different, then that's something they may have to come back to the board and describe why it's different, and attest to that. I would offer, I've seen it done that way.
Okay.
And I imagine
So
that
we'll-
submission is
Yes.
acceptable, and obviously you understand you're going ahead with that risk if they do happen to be off for whatever reason.
Correct.
Okay.
And they're not very close to the number anyway, so there is some leeway there, that if there is some adjustment, it's not so going to trigger that they are there. That's what we wrote.
Let's hope we don't run to a third.
Yes.
Because I don't think I'm willing to go there. Okay, any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
A couple questions about the sign. So, when you were testifying, you said the sign that you're proposing is oval. Then when you pointed the colors, it looks like it's rectangular.
This is the actual sign
Okay.
here, this was just to show the colors.
All right, it's hard to see, so it's, okay. So
Okay.
the actual physical sign will be oval?
Yes, it will be
And the
oval.
height of the oval, you said would be about the same as the current?
Yes, it's also 4 feet 10 inches, so it would be the same as the existing.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I have a question about the sign as well. I know that the current sign is lighted within, but I just feel like it needs to be asked, because I drive by here all the time at night too, frequenter of Magic Fountain. That sign is not lit, though.
Oh,
It has
it
not been lit in
probably
a
doesn't
long
work
time,
anymore.
correct?
Yes.
So we're trying to replace something that's lighted that used to be lighted with something that is lighted. So I just want to point that out, why, I'm not sure I understand why that sign has to be replaced with, I mean, I like the idea, the concept of sort of a retro sign, but it's not. It's being made in 2024, and we have a 2024 code for signage. I'm wondering if I heard what you said about there not being a great place for a sign, maybe not a sign that size, but surely there's another place on the building where you could put a flush-mounted sign as opposed to one that's hanging out and lighted.
So,
And trying to stay below the
Well, my-
second floor line.
My first question to this is, if it hasn't been lit, has the lighting been abandoned?
Usually, a pre-existing non-conforming condition has to be willfully abandoned in some way.
Well, they haven't
And
lit it in
We're-
a long time.
so we're just requesting a variance. We're not,
Yeah, so they're not
Yeah.
relying on a pre-existing nonconformity as carrying it forward here. They are asking for that variance. I think if they were, for example, relying on a pre-existing nonconformity, probably just a failure to maintain the bulbs or whatever is the reason for it not being lit, not good enough to constitute an abandonment of that nonconforming use. It has to show an actual intention to abandon the use under the law.
Well, given that it hasn't operated as an auto body shop in 12 years, I would say then that's abandonment as well, probably in some definition, right? The use of that has been abandoned since the tenants have changed.
Then, yeah, if it's 12 years worth of time, it probably could be
I-
considered abandoned at
right.
that point.
Again,
but-
we're just
but
looking
they're
for,
not asking for that.
a variance, and we could also, have a condition of approval where they turn the light off on the sign at a certain time. So that way it wouldn't be lit,
I
in
have a
the
feeling
middle of
that's
the
gonna be
night.
an executive
Obviously,
committee debate.
this is a painting business, so people are not frequenting the business in the middle of the night.
Would the-
Turn
would
it
the,
off at 5 o'clock.
I'm sorry. Would the signs that are in the windows advertising the painting business remain?
Yes, they will. They're roughly 24 inches by 8 feet long.
So are you allowed to have more than one sign like that?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know.
Yes.
So I'd have to find out about that. Okay.
In the business zone you are.
True, business.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Since, I mean, currently it's operating as like two separate lots and you're trying to incorporate it all together, I can't really tell from the pictures.
Can I just clarify? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it actually functions as one lot, and it has been used as one
Yeah.
lot since like 55?
So are you, the garage that you're redoing, are you using similar materials or styles, so that at least it looks like they, I mean, if you're putting money into the garage, you're going to make it look like it's actually part of the same property?
I think the exterior was just to get a new coat of paint on it, so we would probably match what was
Well, like the
existing.
garage doors and the
Oh, yeah,
windows,
yes,
they look a
yes.
little different, that's why I was just wondering, just so
Yes,
we're
just,
trying to.
those were a little modernized.
So, well, these are the doors on the
Let me
building on
get
lot
the, yeah,
4.
let's get the garage.
I think the intention for the garage is to make it look more residential, because it is on a residential piece of property.
So so we're not trying to like match the windows and everything, just like I said, because it is operating. You know, it's a chance now, since you're saying it has been operating as one business, one property, to be able to have them at least style, look, go along together. Like, for instance, the windows, it looks like it was like
They're like a cottage, right, craftsman style.
yeah, if you
right.
just
We-
wondering.
Can you repeat what the combined floor area ratio is for lots 3 and 4?
Yes, you put them together, 27.63%. Because you're increasing the lot size by putting them together.
It's getting bigger if you kept them
So the
separate.
number's
No,
small.
I see, I'm just looking at the, so.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a couple questions about since we have the plans in front of us and it's showing us the apartments and everything and the garage underneath, can I ask questions about the garage itself under the residential area?
Why not?
I don't know, if we're allowed to. Sure. I know that they said that you're replacing, or you have replaced the ceiling with 5/8 type X fire-rated sheet rock.
Yes, that's all gone through the building department and has been approved, and it's already been
Okay,
been
it's been
done.
done. So there's been no consideration for a fire suppression system in a commercial occupancy with residential above?
No, I think the 1 hour rating is what all they call for.
Okay. And so all this has been approved by the building department. Okay, never mind.
Okay.
Lost my steam there.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Just a comment on the Historical Preservation Committee comments, and the fact that they're maintaining kind of the retro look to the building, and it was pretty supportive commentary that as we kind of think through matching and keeping I think the historical, preserving the historical nature of the property. Drive by there all the time, and it always catches my eye because of, I think, the time period, but, obviously it's in need of some upgrades and landscaping, so,
Aesthetic improvement.
yes, for sure.
Can I just ask one clarifying question? You mentioned that you were going to use option A for the stairs.
Yes.
Can you maybe talk about what that does to that space that's next to it? I think there was some questions that the board had before about it possibly being used as a parking space, but in light of the fact that you're using option A, could you tell us how that affects that area next to the building as possibly being used as a parking space?
In this area here, or
Yes.
for parking space?
Right, I guess, it might have to be in conjunction with the
Yeah,
engineers.
the engineer, yeah.
You might need both of you up here to talk about that.
Okay.
So that option is the same one that was on the engineer's plans.
Right, because, get you in.
Can you talk, do you know how far that's going to extend off of the building? How far will it project off
It
of the side
projects,
of the building?
it projects 5 feet off the side of the building.
5 feet off the side of the building? Okay, so that leaves, just to answer, I think you were asking that about what happens with that spot that's right next to the building. So it only leaves 3 feet left for them to park in. I don't know if that makes a difference.
I think it leaves, I think my point was that if you don't have a car in the space in front first, you can use that as a parking
you go
space.
in
You can
Yeah.
get in,
All
you can
in.
absolutely, I mean,
Yeah.
how many of us have to do a K-turn in our driveway? Maybe I'm the only one.
If you drive by there today, there's a.
We might have to try one of those parallel parking cars, see if we can get in there.
If you drive by there today, there's a vehicle with snow on top of it that's parked alongside the structure.
Right.
So that's just, I don't see that, you're doing what she's asking today. How will that change tomorrow? Would you put bollards up? I mean, you put no.
That's one of the things that we could do. We could put bollards there so you couldn't, I mean, I wanted a little space between the
Of course,
parking
yeah.
stall and the stairs so that somebody's not just driving into the stairs. So possibly a couple of bollards there would eliminate some of the parking right up against the building.
As long as we got you back up. Why is there a sidewalk from Morris Avenue coming off of Morris and goes alongside the building?
That's where the door is to, there's a sidewalk across the frontage of Morris Avenue.
But then it continues down along the building. Do you foresee people parking in that proposed drive to go to the residential spaces?
This one works. No, I actually, someone that wants to get to the office
Or the residential?
parks in the back. The residential door is
Right
on the
there, yeah.
side. So,
And
I
can you
mean,
just
some-
show them where the 4 residential spaces are going that are being reserved?
These would be
Mhm.
these 4,
So
first
then-
4. And then someone that's in the office that's parking their vehicle in the back there.
So am I mistaken that this is not a sidewalk, or it is a
It's a
sidewalk?
sidewalk along the building.
Right, but then right in front, in the front.
Well,
Right there.
there's a sidewalk along Morris Avenue, so
Okay.
this just brings sidewalk out.
Okay. And then the front door to the office is there.
Correct, front door of the office is right opposite the sidewalk.
So you envision perhaps a client stopping by, maybe, walking down the sidewalk to go to the office as opposed to, okay.
Well, no, someone's in the office and they want to get ice cream, they come out the front and they cross the
I got news for you, you're walking across the grass.
That's another story here.
Okay,
Um,
Well,
thank
it does seem like that's another parking space, though, as you, your point about the, when I went by the other day, there were 14 cars parked on the lot. One of the cars was parked right there next to the sidewalk, so,
Well, this is going to all be, there's a curb cut.
no, no,
here.
I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about where you're going to have the driveway that goes out to the road. So that was being used as a parking space as well, and there's a sidewalk next to it, so I can understand it, just sort of connecting the dots with the questions here, as in that could potentially be used as a parking space as well.
Well, I think you're reducing the size of that area from what's existing, and that's also going to be an exit only. There's no ingress permitted. That was something that we had testified to at the last hearing, that area is exit only.
It's a little short.
There'll be a sign there, so the clients that pull in for a painting estimate don't park there?
I mean, we can put one in. I would imagine that it would be dangerous to pull in, because then you'd back out onto Morris Avenue.
Yeah, I just think if you're coming from Morris Avenue, you might not even know there's a parking lot behind. You're looking at, painting store, and there's a parking space and a sidewalk right there. It looks like a parking space.
I think you could put a sign that says no parking.
Or maybe something that says.
Do not enter.
Parking behind.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
that might,
yeah.
Yeah.
So can I go back to that parking spot on the side of the building? Sorry to horse, but I'm wondering, can you just curb it so that nobody can sneak in there to park a car? Or it's not used as storage, which it sounds like right now it's more like a storage spot. There's a vehicle there with snow on top of it. What if we just curbed it? Instead of having the asphalt all the way up to the building, why not just put curbing next to stalls 16 and 17?
I would like to confer with my client before I make that. I have a little leeway, but that may be more than I have. I will speak with him.
Okay. And then we'll hold off on that for a minute, so you can do that. Are there any other questions? Are there any questions from the public? Okay.
Joe,
you
I'm
have
sorry.
what?
Chairman, I'm sorry. Just, I'm sorry to be a pain in the neck. I believe there was testimony at the last meeting, and maybe this is not the appropriate time to ask, but there is a lot line going right down the center of this property.
Correct.
So if you're asking to combine the lots together to make one business zone lot? Or
No.
you're gonna keep them separate?
It
I
doesn't
just-
change the zoning designation.
Okay.
So there would still be a zoning boundary line
Okay.
in the middle of the combined lot.
Okay, I just wasn't 100% accurate on that.
Yep, we
Thank you.
don't have that authority. That would be up to
Right.
the governing body to
Okay,
change the
very good.
zoning.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions, public, board? You have 2 additional witnesses, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to suggest that we, in the middle of Mr. Hollow's testimony, that we take a 5-minute break,
Sure.
which gives him an opportunity to get his answer, and then
Perfect.
he can answer that question before we move on.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Said I? Said I.
Sounds good to me.
short deliberation, we will put curbing in along the edge of this parking stall, and I would tie it back into the corner of the building. And we would remove the curbing that's proposed that goes into the building and just have a curb along that parking stall side. So this would not be, it would be lawn or gravel.
Definitely not a parking spot.
Definitely not a parking spot. I mean, we talked about bollards, but we thought that the curb was
Bless you.
the best thing.
Okay. Any other questions from Mr. Hollows or
Mr.
the-
McNerney.
any questions from the public? No? You have another witness.
I do. John Olivo, the landscape architect.
Good evening.
If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter, so the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
John Olivo, and it's spelled O-L-I-V-O.
Thank you.
And I am a principal landscape architect at Bosenberg Landscape Architecture in Bedminster.
Okay, and
Bachelor of Science from Rutgers University. Been practicing for 24 years and licensed for 20 years.
licensed in New Jersey and still in good standing?
It is number 938.
Thank you. Any questions from the board, or would you like to accept his credentials?
Questions from the board? None, we'll accept your credentials, and your attorney will begin the questioning.
Great. And
Thank
what
you.
steps did you take to prepare yourself to give expert testimony tonight?
So initially, met with the client at the site, tried to understand sort of the aesthetic goals, the improvements that he was aiming to make to the property. And then sort of took the site engineer's site plans. So he did all, like, obviously the stuff that he just ran through, all the technical aspects, parking, et cetera. They had some meetings with the zoning officer, and then we overlaid sort of those aesthetic desires into this site plan. And in doing so, we were reviewing the ordinance. This exhibit, which would be Exhibit A7, I believe. Is that correct?
Correct.
This exhibit actually reflects, it is not in the plans that the board members received and the board professionals received. It reflects the commentary from the board professionals, the city forester, the planning report, engineering report. And some of those comments that are reflected on this plan specifically relate to, there's a, on the sort of Lowell side of the property, which is the southern boundary, there's currently a 36-inch caliber oak tree, or DBH oak tree, sorry. And John Linson's report mentioned that it was diseased and should be removed, especially with the new parking that was being proposed. I think there was a sort of a conflicting report. I'm not sure if it was the planners or the.
Zoning officer.
It was
a
zoning officer.
Question, if it could be maintained.
Yeah, so we did sort of run that experiment, and really you would have to remove 5 spaces to maintain a safe boundary around that oak tree. So we had sort of a question, and then the city forester weighed in as saying the oak had some disease, structural deficiencies and some disease aspects to it. So with that, he recommended adding an additional shade tree to the plan that we had put together. So we added a willow oak, which is it's more of a southern oak, zone 7, but as as those zones start moving up, it's going to be something that is more resilient over time. The plan does envision, I believe it's 57 evergreens, this rendering, which is 19 more than the initial submission. And I'm going to step back here. Mr. Linson also mentioned there was a group of, there was a dead ash tree, I believe, and a pin oak on this boundary here that were not in great condition. And there was a desire to continue the evergreen hedge along the northern boundary line, which would be actually behind a 7-foot board-on-board fence. So we did also address that in this rendering. And I'm trying to just recall if there were some other accommodations. So again, 57 evergreens, 3 deciduous trees, 110 shrubs, 12 different species. So we were trying to make an effort to add a lot more plant diversity. I would note that the evergreens, we have 2 different varieties, and that being said, it was to kind of create, optimize the screening capabilities without sort of encroaching on parking areas or neighboring properties. So they're very narrow, upright plantings that will get, the green giants will grow 40 feet tall at their mature height, which they run from the northern corner down to the southern Lowell boundary, and then along the northern, coming across to the Morris Ave boundary, we went with a juniper kettleri, which is a narrow, more modest evergreen, only gets about 15 feet tall, but still fairly large considering there are no screening elements currently in especially this Morris Ave boundary. On the corner, due to sort of site triangle issues, we proposed 1 shade tree, but then went with a lower evergreen hedge. So we, again, still offering the aesthetic, but this will give a 3 to 3.5 foot buffer, sort of softening the improvements that we're making to the project. There was, Mr. Nelson, I think, brought up a good comment about views in from the Lowell Ave portion of the property. And I did speak with the applicant, and we will explore extending those evergreens across the face of that, but we will have to respect site triangles, making sure there's like safe site distances, and additionally running the hedge, the lower hedge across this ADA accessible area.
And I think the forester had also requested that there be screening continuing next to the garage.
Yes, so this rendering does reflect that. And again, this is your first time seeing it. I do have handouts if those would be helpful, or if this is adequate for now, we can stay here.
And will those grow tall enough to shield the new dormer?
Yes. Maximum height would be about 45 to 50 feet. There are some existing shade trees here, so I would say there'd probably be more in the 25. They're going to grow a little bit slower with that shade aspect, but still plenty to screen what's happening here.
And how big is the buffer that's being proposed?
So this was the variance request from the landscape side. The variance was, the requirement was for a 30-foot buffer, which would, be about in the middle of the parking spaces here. We're proposing a 20-foot buffer, and I would say 10 of that is extremely intense. I would also note, however, that on this boundary, which is the western boundary, there is a fairly robust existing evergreen buffer there. So we'd essentially be adding on to that existing buffer. Again, sort of evergreens with being flanked by a mix of shrubs below, and then a new planting of a willow oak in that vicinity.
So in your opinion, do you think a 20-foot buffer is sufficient to minimize the light from the vehicles?
I do, because again, as I mentioned earlier, we selected a very strict habited evergreen. So they're planted very closely together, and they're going to create essentially a green fence. And again, additionally, which I haven't really touched on, there is a 7-foot fence being proposed, which I think, would that lead us into our next exhibit here? or-
Is there also a fence between the property adjacent?
Yes, there would be a fence. So you'd have your existing Leyland cypress, which is on the neighboring property, which is, I want to say it's every bit of, I'm going to say 20 feet right now, maybe a little shorter. 7-foot board-on-board fence, new plantings at 6 to 8 feet, which ultimately will get a bit taller than that, shrub layer, and then lawn up to the parking areas, which, believe it or not, when we do our landscape plans, we do consider snow removal. So that lawn area could act as a snow removal area in smaller events. Additionally, this larger lawn area may act as a snow removal area in sort of larger events. Should we go to the next exhibit?
So this would be Exhibit A8.
This is A8. These photos, so the top 2 photos are existing conditions taken on June 26th of 2023. So it's sort of a view hitting the Lowell Morris intersection, and then a view more on the Morris Ave intersection, actually looking at this the existing sort of parking area. So what we did is we show a condition in both of these, the next set of illustrations that shows sort of at the time of planting what this will look like. And again, I have sort of handouts if those would be more helpful, but here's Lowell coming right here. Morris is running along the right side. We actually illustrate the proposed signage. So again, low hedge on the Lowell corner. And then as we move up Morris, you have your board-on-board fence, 6 to 8 foot tall evergreens with a planting in front of those of perennials, 1 shade tree, sort of moving, which I can go back to that. We have a red maple on the corner there, which is right in this location. And then in this sort of far right illustration, that would be as you're looking at the structure across, it was actually on the other side of Morris Ave here, looking to the southwest. So again, board-on-board fence, evergreens, shrub layer, red maple. So this was, I thought, a telling illustration because it, again, in our illustration program, these cars are in that photo, and that fence is a 7 foot tall fence. So I believe there was testimony at the initial meeting about the height of vehicles that would be allowed. The last 2 illustrations are after 5 years of maturity. So again, with regards to the landscape, everything's going to get larger as long as it's healthy. And I think the applicant has every intention of making this clearly a beautified corner. So again, after 5 years, your evergreens would probably be in the realm of 13 to 15 feet. So even reinforcing that buffering of the the vehicular aspect of this project.
I don't have any other questions.
Staff?
Mr. Chairman, just one question. In your professional opinion, when you're looking at the buffer as well as the other improvements in the landscaping, how is this improving the property? Or what is it offering to the board for consideration, in consideration of the use variance that's being proposed and the commercial activity on the property from a landscape perspective?
So again, if we go back to, I think the upper two photos are a good illustration of what's not there currently. And I think, I want to say it's a transformational project, but it is in some ways because of the amount of hardscape that's being removed from the facade and I guess the highly traveled way. But again, Mr. Nelson brought up a good point about considering other neighboring properties looking into the property, so we will take another look at that, because again, pull the plan view up, but I think, you know, if there is an ability, again, respecting site triangles and safety, to have an evergreen component on this corner or this boundary, then that really does a good job of concealing the vehicular aspect of this. Yes, you would see the architectural element. Perhaps you would see one accessible vehicle, but again, there would be a continuation of that 3-foot hedge. So I do think the landscape aspect of this is adding a lot of value to the project.
And there's a significant amount of evergreens, right?
Currently on this plan, they're 57, and that could be up into the 60 realm if we make these additions. Whereas currently, yes, it is unfortunate that this 36-inch oak has to go.
Just to I think it's a 26-inch.
It was 26 on the survey, but I think
Okay.
John mentioned
Did he
36
do-
in
okay.
his
Sorry,
memo.
just
But
wanted to make sure.
that's a good, yeah. So unfortunate to lose that, but I think we are making very strong efforts to sort of reinvigorate the property with a wide variety of plantings.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
Okay, board members?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
First, I want to thank the applicant for allowing you to make this excellent plan. I mean, you know, I can't thank you both enough, because it seems like you addressed all the forester's concerns. I just want to make sure I'm seeing it right, because it's kind of hard to see from here. Looks like that shed has been moved about half a parking lot width or half a parking space width or something?
Yes, good. That's a good point, and I apologize for not bringing that up earlier, but that was, we did move that to allow the hedge to be continuous, which again, I think the Morris Ave improvements and I guess along this northern boundary will help the visibility be, or help the buffering of that utility space greatly. Yeah,
And I really like the way extending basically pretty much around the entire property. And with the possible expansion of that Lowell Avenue to address Mr. Nelson's concern, yeah, great improvement.
and I guess Mr. Hollows just mentioned that the applicant's also willing to entertain whether it's gravel or perhaps a lawn space being curbed. So that's not so much a buffer, but it is adding more planting to the current hardscape area.
That's all I have.
I have one question, just
Mhm.
something you mentioned right at the very beginning, just curious about it. The willow tree, it was the southern willow from.
Oh, the
yeah,
willow oak.
Zone 7 willow oak or something.
Yeah.
And we live in planting zone
We're
3?
getting close to 7.
We're close to 7, okay, so it is for, because you said something like
It-
it'll you know,
Well,
as like, it sounded like as the temperatures start to increase in our area, like, that it might not be suited for our area now, but it could be over time, and I'm just wondering,
so
like, is it suited for right now, or is it, you know, are
So
we
Summit,
hoping?
20 years ago when I started, was 5B, and now we're, I think, Summit's 6B, which is close to 7. So it's slowly, the reason this oak was selected is because it's more resilient to some of the diseases that occur in warmer climate, where red oaks, which I believe this is a red oak, it's migrating northward, meaning its range is. So willow oak's more resilient to what's coming.
Right, so, but it's also good for like our current, you know, climate
It
zone.
is,
as in, you know,
yes.
not 10 years from now, but like today.
No,
Yeah.
it's still, it's fine, yeah. But it is, things are changing,
Yeah.
so just adjust, you know, modifying what we plant, essentially.
I have a question, and it could be for anybody before this, but the garage is no longer gonna be a function garage, because you can't even drive a car into it, correct? I mean, because I see on your diagram, there's bushes in front of, I mean, I guess the asphalt doesn't even go into the garage, near the garage?
Correct. Right now, the drive does not go to the garage, so it's just gonna continue as is, where it's not used for storage of
Okay, I couldn't
vehicles,
tell.
it's
There was
just
snow in
storage
it.
of
Okay.
equipment.
Any more questions for the landscape architect? Questions from the public? None? Okay, shall we move to
Final
your
witness.
final resolution?
Yes.
you.
Michael Tobia.
Just gonna need a minute here, Mr. Chairman. This is, assuming your system is working?
Yep. It's my understanding it's supposed to be. We'll find out, right, Jenny?
That's fine. Oh, is that person?
This is the
Actually, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's a good looking drawing.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how you do that.
Do what?
That draw.
Wanted that landscaping.
Okay, Hillary said
You were there for a second.
yeah, I know. She said she'd rather me show you my travel photography than
Yes.
my technical drawings, so we're not getting anything yet, though, are we?
Where did you go?
Why aren't we?
I know it wasn't working at the council meeting.
It just popped up.
Yeah, I saw
Popped
a
up for a
fish or something
second.
for a
Some of
second.
it did.
We saw your
Mandalorian
login.
is up there.
Well, he's
I'm up. And
Well, he's also a child.
Try your option, and see if it can display.
say it again, please.
Sorry. You might. Sometimes on the, is Windows?
No.
No, it's not.
Beauty of technology.
We just,
How do we survive without it?
Try unplugging it and plugging it back in, I'm told.
There you go.
There you go.
have it?
Yeah.
Super
Okay.
high tech.
It might be, it might be that big.
This testimony doesn't count. The bird does not speak.
What's this part? We'll be ready to go in 2 hours, just you all just sit down.
We won't be here. And the next date's December 3rd.
No.
Anything?
Not unfortunately.
There you go.
Don't move. Okay.
Don't let anybody.
Okay, so this is some sailfish photography I did in Cozumel. And you don't want to see that. So what you want to see, we're still good? Okay. We're going to
Alright.
give you a little slideshow. Oh,
I'll
we have to
swear
do
you in
something
first.
I'm
If you
sorry.
could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
It's Michael Tobia, Tobia, the applicant's planning consultant.
Thank you, and can you briefly describe your background and experience?
Sure, I have a bachelor's in urban planning from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, master's in the same field from Rutgers. Graduate degree work ended in 1981. I've been practicing continuously in this field since then, with appearances before over 200 agencies of this nature, planning boards, zoning boards, as well as multiple appearances in Superior Court, municipal courts, and as some of you know, many appearances here in Summit.
And license in New Jersey is in good standing.
Yes, it is.
Any questions, or would you like to accept his credentials?
I see no questions. Please proceed.
Okay,
Your
thank
attorney
you
will
very much.
begin the questioning.
So, do you have anything to open up, or? Okay. We're gonna walk you through the property, and you'll see with some photography here, what we've been talking about in terms of basically overall improvements to the site, beautification to the site, with an applicant, by the way, that is only looking to add 64 square feet of floor area to the entire property. Okay, so this is not, unlike most of our applicants who are looking to add a lot of building space, office space, more apartments, and so on. This is about improving efficiencies and operations on the site. This is a new exhibit. I'd like to give you a paper copy. We on an exhibit A,
Yes, we're at A9.
A9, and today's date is 21st.
Today's 21st.
So this is A9. It's a PowerPoint of 15 pages, photos dated August 1st of last year, and give this to you and we'll get started.
And you'll send a copy, a digital copy to Ms. Zulios tomorrow?
You got that transfer?
Do you want to pass it that way first?
No, no, no.
Okay, so the A9 is dated December 4th, which was the date of our first hearing. And now let's go and share with you a couple things. Here we have an aerial photo of the site, dead center on slide 2, and it shows the commercial building, parking lot around the building. Morris Avenue runs from upper
I'm sorry to cut in. Can you just move the mic closer to you? They're not hearing you in the back. Thanks.
So as I was saying, Morris Avenue runs from upper left to lower right on this exhibit, and Lowell runs from dead center toward the lower left of the exhibit. The garage is at the rear of the property. As you know, Morris Avenue is a commercial corridor. In addition to the school across the street, the main land use nearby is Enterprise right next door, except for some of you where the main land use nearby is Magic Fountain, which if they had an application here tonight, it probably would have been approved in 5 minutes, right? So that's one of your local landmarks. Okay, slide 3, this is the building. Okay, the main building on the site, as you heard, has 2-bedroom apartments upstairs, front and back, 2 units total. Downstairs is the applicant's painting business, TJ Painting, and the building does have some historic long-term appeal, certain industrialism to it. The interior of it is done with old steel, big heavy I-beams, garage door at the front. As you heard before, a lot of glass up front. There is no physical change proposed to this building in terms of expansion. Slide 4. Now I've moved back across the street on Morris, and I wanted to show you the streetscape. There's an oversized curb cut across the front of the property, which we're going to narrow down. We've told you previously the garage door is important to us as a historical element. It will be saved and used, but only for occasional exit-only traffic onto Morris. No inbound traffic will be permitted, nor will any cars be parked across the front of the building. As you come around the side, you see a side parking lot that will be removed, replaced with lawn, as Mr. Hollows explained to you earlier. curb cut on that side will also be removed. Let's go to slide 5. We come around the back of the building, and this is the main building still. That cantilevered element at the top, second floor apartment stays. The staircase that you start to see here will be replaced. On slide 6, you start to see some of the haphazard, disorganized parking that's been on the site for decades and will be corrected by what the applicant's proposing if this is all approved. Along Lowell Avenue, our frontage here also has an extra wide curb cut toward the back of the property that'll get tightened up and better organized than what's out here now. Okay, now, when we move to 5 Lowell Avenue, remember we moved to a residentially zoned portion of the site. This is an R6 zone. It permits single-family homes, and this zone runs all the way down Lowell, where you do see a multitude of homes. This is the dividing line between our business zone and our residential neighborhood moving down Lowell. All that's on it is the garage. Hillary explained earlier, it's been built on the site for decades. It's been merged in use for decades with the commercial use that's been on the site for 70-plus years, okay? So commercial use has been linked on this residentially zoned piece for decades. No residential use has been on the site for all of that time. As we move to slide 8, we're going to zoom in on this garage. Here I want you to note there is an existing dormer on the second floor of the garage. Okay? The proposal that you heard from our architect is basically to mimic this dormer on the other side of the garage, left side of the garage as you look at the slide. That's going to add storage area to the building. That's the only spot on the site where floor area will be increased. And there it's by 64 square feet. Most of our tool sheds in our backyards are bigger than 64 square feet. But it will achieve symmetry up on this garage. Most of it probably won't be seen from passersby. A buffer that I'll explain to you in a moment already exists to the left of that proposed dormer addition, and the entirety of the second floor won't even be heated. It's only for storage. Okay. Next slide. I wanted to show you this. This is the entirety of the site from Lowell Avenue, looking at both buildings on the property. It shows the main building. It shows the accessory building. Once these two lots merge, the garage does become an accessory building. That means although we're not changing its footprint, a variance kicks in for the size of the footprint with 720 feet existing, 576 feet permitted if this was a garage in a residential zone. So we need a variance. Moreover, garages in residential zones are only permitted to be 24 feet square. The existing building has a dimension of 30 feet in length. That's a variance, even though once again it's an existing condition. It's really intended to make sure our garages don't get too big in our single-family zones. Really doesn't apply here, but we had to notice it because we're changing the size of the building. The other variance that relates here to the garage is the height. We're working with an existing height of 17-plus feet in a zone that only permits 15. We think adding the dormer here is functionally important to the site. It's not changing the overall height of an accessory building that's existed for decades. Okay? And so we got up into the attic, and this illustrates the dormer now up there on the left side, which has some 7 feet of headroom, and no dormer on the right side. The idea would be to pop out this side of the roof
and create more storage up here. You can see it's not heated. We do have a light bulb up here, but it's going to be basically storage. One of our stipulations that I'll go through with you at the end of the testimony is that if approved, the applicant will accept a simple condition that says no outside storage, because we'll have the building for outside storage and the shed for outside storage and the first floor of the garage. So you shouldn't see anything on the grounds anywhere around the entire site. Mr. Olivo, when he was just up, mentioned the strong existing buffer on the left side of the site as you look at it from Lowell. Here you see it on the right side of this slide. This is mostly off-site. Even now, when you stand on the site, it's hard to see our neighboring home at 7 Lowell. Mr. Olivo's testimony demonstrates to me conclusively that it will justify our proposed expansion of our parking lot, our overnight parking of commercial vehicles, because it simply will be impossible to be seen from 7 Lowell as well as from Morris Avenue. Here we start to get into the main driver of the application, which is parking on the site right now is a haphazard mess, okay? Things that are going to be added as proposed by Mr. Hollows will be pavement, curbing, lighting, landscaping, ADA parking, stacked organized commercial parking for the vehicles that will be on the site. And they all, one after another, present special reasons to you all as a board to justify the granting of all the variances. When we move to slide 13, you can see this haphazard parking again, stacked 4 cars deep, and those are not the commercial vehicles. No striping either, and no stormwater. Okay? We only get a chance to look at these properties as board members and as professionals every 10 years, every 20 years. You know, you don't know when an applicant's going to bring in a case, but this is a great opportunity to make a comprehensive review of the entire site. Here's the site. I hopped up in the garage and shot out toward the corner. Magic Fountain's on your right, okay? And Morris is across the back of this building from this shot. It shows you what's on the site now and how we can clear up all the haphazard site design on the property now. Let me leave that up, and we're going to go, I want to go through the variances quickly with you. Many of them have been discussed already by prior witnesses. The main variances are twofold. One, our new parking lot is placing 9 parking stalls across the residential border into the R6 zone. That requires a D1 variance from this board. The reasons we submit to you that that works is the organization, modernization, and improvement overall of the parking lot. Now we'll have a double-stacked parking lot with spaces that relate only to this building on a lot that will be used for nothing other than this building's parking and storage needs. Okay, that's what we call a D1 variance, and the justification is just beautification of the site. Your ordinance permits 1 commercial vehicle to be parked overnight in commercial zones. We are petitioning the board for 6 to be parked overnight in those stacked parking stalls that Mr. Hollows explained to you earlier. There is no better site for the storage of these commercial vehicles than this site. It meets what we call the particular suitability test. If the commercial vehicles were parked anyplace else, the applicant would be constantly compromised by shuffling vehicles and finding other places to park stuff, and this is where they belong. Mr. Olivo's work at the front of this proposed stacked parking area is to add a fence, add plant material, as well as at the back. The reason we don't like commercial vehicles parked on sites is a lot of times they look ugly. But when they're totally screened from view and landscaped and so on, it's kind of no harm, no foul, and this is plainly the most important and suitable place
for commercial parking to take place. Remember what happens, by the way. Employees show up here in the morning, pick up a van, leave their personal car on the site, and go to job sites. Okay? We've talked about the hanging sign through architectural testimony. All I would tell you about that is we're proposing a sign that's about 20 square feet in size. It's been hanging perpendicular to the building for 75 years. We have a photo from 1949 that shows a sign perpendicular to the building advertising the old use on the site. The reason we don't want to go with a conforming sign placed flat on the facade is its visibility would be much poorer to the traveling public because the building is so close to the street. Hanging signs are permitted in your business district, your CRBD zone, which is Springfield Avenue, because buildings are really close to the street. And when we turn signs perpendicular, people can see them more easily. That's why we want the sign. If we put one flat on the wall, it would be permitted. It could be twice or more the size of what we're asking for. So this isn't a question of over signage. It's a question of the suitable and logical spot for the sign. In our R6 zone, because coverage is increased because of our new parking lot, we need a coverage variance, even though we're merging both lots. The proposed condition is 53.2% in a zone that permits 35. The benefits of that coverage variance are, first of all, Mr. Hollows has managed it carefully with stormwater management. We've shielded it visually, and without it, we're defeating one of the main purposes of the application, which is more parking and organized parking on the site. Overall, by the way, if we compared our proposed parking to the coverage requirements of the B zone, we'd be far below what's permitted. Okay? We talked at the last meeting back on December 4th that this applicant has virtually no loading needs whatsoever. We're not getting tractor trailers coming on this site. This is a business that relies entirely on FedEx and UPS and Amazon for deliveries. So we're asking for a waiver of your loading stall requirement, recognizing that the applicant will have quick deliveries by the carriers I just mentioned. They'll be on the site for minutes at a time, and there's no reason to dedicate a loading spot for something with such light loading needs. Bill Hollers has explained to you our lighting waiver. I won't go any further into that other than to say this is a lot that needs illumination because we do have residential tenants who will be coming and going all evening, even though our business use on the property is basically a 9 to 5 activity. Tandem parking has been explained. Our accessory building variances have been explained. And I wanted to talk to you for a minute. Where is John's pointer? You gave me your pointer, right?
It's behind the microphone.
Oh, okay. Thank you. One thing we haven't talked about tonight is a dumpster, which is being added to the site in an attempt to further organize the site. Mr. Hollers has concluded the best place for the dumpster is dead center down the middle of the parking lot, because that allows easiest access for our trash haulers to get to. Believe it or not, that dumpster then goes right across the zone line separating our commercial zoning from our residential zoning. In the business zone, dumpster would be permitted. It's not permitted in the residential zone. So for that little design oddity, namely it's half in one and half in the other, we request a variance to permit it, recognizing from engineering testimony it's the best spot on the site for the dumpster. And obviously, every building needs a place to collect their trash. So we ask for that variance as well. Hillary, I think I got them all. Hillary's always good at telling me I missed just one. Come on, do it. think we got that. Yeah. Couple things on your master plan, which I think are helpful, and they're repeated in your planner's report as well. The master plan directs you at page 6 to protect the character of residential neighborhoods and distance commercial uses from residential districts. Everywhere along Morris Avenue, we have pressure points between our commercial land uses, and one lot back is usually a home. How you handle that interface is what the master plan's talking about. Here, we're adding a 20-foot buffer, we're adding fencing, we're adding evergreen plants. In a moment, I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna commit to turning off all parking lot lights at 10 p.m. to further protect our homeowners to the rear. This master plan goal is consequently met by the application. Page 6 of the master plan says basically the same thing. Let's encourage effective transition zones between what's up on Morris and what's in the back. We're doing that as well. And page 9, same thing. Consideration should always be given to the impact of any development that any development has on prevailing character and scale of the neighborhood. We have to recognize our commercial use is not going away. Our garage is not going away. The planning challenge is how to protect the friction between this and what begins at 7 Lowell Avenue as we move down the street. So, for newcomers to the board, and I understand we have a couple here, every variance you ponder, whether it's a homeowner case like the one earlier tonight, or a commercial case like this, you have to ask yourself 2 basic things. Is it a substantial detriment to the public good? Which in plain language means, is it really a bad thing for the neighborhood? Okay? And is it a substantial impairment to your zoning ordinance? Okay? Are we taking your zoning code and totally ignoring it to get what we want? In each case here, the answer is no. We're being extremely respectful of the neighbor behind us. In terms of the zoning ordinance, we're dealing with a site that's in a B zone. To improve it, we have to grant some variances to reflect the inherent awkwardness of only half the site being in the B zone, the other half being back in the residential zone. We think our detriments here are minor. What we've done with this applicant in terms of site design is really respectful of everyone in the neighborhood and in the city. I've been taking notes and talking to my client through our 2 hearings now. At one point or another, we stipulated to the following, which we'd accept as conditions if you all are inclined to approve this case. One would be, as I said, no parking in front of the building where that garage is. Exit only out of that building. And we represented to you that volume would be extremely light. But cars might occasionally want to come out the garage to Morris Avenue, but it would be exit only. We would merge the lots. That's already on the plans, but it's in there too. We would stipulate to no outdoor storage anywhere on the site. Bill Hollow said no lighting above 3,000 K. That, I think, is now on the plans, but we'd make that a condition so it gets double checked. Lights off in the parking lot at 10 p.m. We only have 2 lights back there, but we'd shut them off. The future use of the building would be the same use that you have out there now. We haven't talked about this much, but nothing's changing with the building. We're not hiring employees. We're not taking on new services. We're just doing the same thing that's been out there for 12 years now. We'll comply with the city engineer report. We'll add a sign. Oh, I think some board member wanted a sign saying parking in rear of site or something like that. Excuse me, something like that. We'll find a suitable site for that sign. And then we talked about adding that curbing along the staircase in the back to prevent parking around that staircase, which Mr. Hollows discussed tonight. So, good application. I work rarely on cases that add this little amount of footprint to achieve so much in terms of nice site improvements to the site. So that's all I got, unless you think I missed something. Hillary.
Maureen?
No, I have not.
Ed?
Just a few questions. Regarding the overall variance requesting the amount of commercial vehicles on the property, typically the intent of that is to control the amount and scale of vehicles. I was not at the December meeting, but was there any stipulations as to the size, and I know the amount, but the size of the vehicles?
They're all commercial vans.
Okay.
It was represented at the last meeting that they are only 6 feet 10 inches high, no ladders on top of them.
Okay.
So you see why we know a 7-foot fence works. And they're for the applicants, they're exclusively for the applicant's use.
Okay. No trailers?
No trailers.
No trailers, okay. Because that would be one thing I just wanted to offer to the board, is that obviously you're dealing with that nuance of the variance, where you don't want to have something where in the future it becomes a gray area, where you can have larger vehicles, because what if this applicant no longer inhabits the building? The variance runs with the land in the situation. So you have to make sure you're putting in safeguards to control that.
We'd stip, by the way, if you wanted to, limit it to those 6 vehicles, so you have that additional control.
Understood.
Okay?
Okay. You talked about the overall impervious lot coverage for the residential lot, or the residentially zoned portion of the lot.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about the intent of that variance, the intent of that control?
So, yeah, that's a good
How
question.
It's not substantial.
Yeah, first of all, it's intended for a single-family home to be placed on the lot, which means your zoning ordinance is saying if someone built a home there, put a garage on, put a driveway there, threw a patio in the back, all that added up could not exceed 35% of the lot. Importantly, when you move to the business zone, the same ordinance says, well, then you can go to 90%. Recognizing we use we use our commercial sites much more intensely than we use our residential sites. So intent here for the back piece really should not apply to what we're doing, because we're moving more toward a commercial usage of it.
But the overall site itself is under its overall standard.
Correct.
As it is.
Right. And I know you heard before, by the way, about combined floor area. You know, we're at 28%, you heard. And, you know, if you look at that against the business zone, 75% is permitted. So this is really a low-intensity use of the business zone. And even that FAR would be far less than what's permitted in the R6 residential zone.
True. Overall, in your testimony, and I know we have some new board members here, I know you talked about the particular suitability of the property and the negative criteria. Just as far as the positive criteria, if you can touch on the purposes of zoning that are being furthered by this.
So, okay, so, I got it in here, so, okay, so, for new members, you know, generally what happens with justification of variances is we have basic goals handed down by the state that are enabling legislation that creates zoning boards, planning boards, master plans, zoning ordinances, the whole shebang. At the page 1 of that legislation are basic goals, okay? And the goals say things like provide adequate air, light, and open space. They say promote a desirable visual environment, promote the more efficient use of land. Most times when we have to justify variances, we have to present to you that we've advanced one or more of these goals. My testimony tonight has said we promote goals A, C, G, I, and M. And they are, in plain language, 1, we promote general welfare of the neighborhood. 2, we are still providing adequate air, light, and open space. Like our coverage is low, we know we're still giving you enough green grass and enough landscaping, for instance. Goal I is a really important one in my field. It simply says promote a desirable visual environment, which means what we want to do here is figure out how we can make stuff look good. Okay? That was mostly Mr. Olivo's work on this. How do you buffer? How do you beautify? Recognizing it's still a business use. And the other one I wanted to bring up is goal M, which says promote the more efficient use of land. And here, you saw all the slides. The site's a mess. How do you make it more efficient? How do you make cars park more easily, lighting safer, finally a spot for our barrier-free parking space, and landscaping, lighting. These are ways to make the site more efficient.
Thank you. You got it. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I have one, and it only came up, Ms. Tobia, during your testimony. You mentioned, and normally we like the idea of lights shutting off at 10 o'clock at night or something like that, but I'm wondering if there are tenants there, they're gonna come and go after 10 o'clock. Would motion detecting lights be an option to address?
We could do that. The tenant spaces,
Or
as you may
am I the only one
recall.
concerned about that?
Jump in here.
Go ahead.
Sorry, so I believe what they said is there's a light by the door and a light under the cantilever area. Those lights will stay on all night.
And where is that in relation to where the tenants are gonna be parking?
So the tenants will park right here, and there'll be a light under here and a light by the door.
Okay. If I think it were me, I'd like to have more light than that, but I don't know if anybody else.
Listen, I have a motion sensor at my place. We could add one if you want. That could be directed toward those 4 spaces. You know, Mr. Hollis explained to you last time, these are LED lights now out here. Man, we could adjust them in so many ways. If you want us to look at that, subject to your staff review, we could look at the one pole-mounted light nearest these 4 spaces and adjust it accordingly. We could do that.
Thoughts on that? Anybody think it's necessary?
Is there any lighting now for the, in the,
Just
For
those
the-
2 lights at the, what they go, at 10 o'clock, those 2 lights, those 4 lights go off, and there are 2 lights on the building.
on the building, but there are lights currently?
There's no lights in the parking lot.
There's no
No
lights in the
no
parking lot
lights in
now.
the
I mean, it's
parking
an issue, I just,
Which is why they park helter-skelter closer to the door. If I,
I'm just thinking if it's a business that's really there from till 5 PM, do you need, how much light do you need? I mean, the lighting till 10 PM, who's that really benefiting if the tenants could be coming after 10 PM?
Exactly, which is my concern.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
it's
either-
you could light up those spaces. and
All or
have
none.
Those being motion, the
Yeah.
tenants' parking spaces.
That's the only spaces I think,
We're gonna pull up the lighting plan for you all. Just, Bill, you wanna take this?
It's not rendered, but if you have this, you have this drawing.
Might be in the pictures, the lights.
Yeah. I could,
use the microphone, take the microphone with you. Sorry.
What are you looking for, the pictures on the building?
lights of
you
the- on the
could,
side
you could
of
leave
the
that,
building.
that other picture on my,
There's
showing
one
that.
right there.
So I think that's what he's talking about, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
There's a light under the cantilever. Right here. There is no light at the door going up the stairs. There will be one as part of the plan. And then if we can go to a side, so you got one light here.
No
there-
lights in the attic. Hold on a second. we'll get-
There's one
And
light in
then
the
there's
attic.
another light mounted on the building next to this door. And that's this light right there. Right there.
And where are you parking the tenants?
The The tenants right now just park along the edge of the
Where are
paved
the
area.
tenants gonna be parking?
They're gonna be the 4 parking stalls closest to Lowell. So they would be opposite, I can come down. There are these 4 parking stalls for the tenants. So you would have a light under the cantilever area, a light by the door. And that was the proposal, was to keep those on, and then there'd be a light, maybe this one should be on a motion sensor, because you're not always gonna come up this stairway. And that's really our original proposal, was again, leave the light by the door, leave the light under the cantilever.
I'd feel better with something by the parking spaces, I don't know what, I don't have the imagination to say what kind of light, but
Where's our pole mounted?
Motion sensor.
One's
makes
on the
sense to
building
me.
here.
If they drive in,
And-
the light
Yeah,
goes
it's
on,
back
it stays
here.
on for 4 minutes, it goes on.
I think that's one of the reasons why the tenants currently park there, A, convenience, and B, lighting.
They're right under the light.
So
I
do we
mean, we
want to
don't
add
wanna walk.
that, do we want to add that as a condition? What? Do we want to add that as a condition? Okay.
Yeah, could you put something along the building side?
We're just talking about a motion sensor.
It's not
Something
gonna-
either on the cantilever to get those 4 stalls, or on the edge of the building here to get those 4 stalls, and on the motion sensor.
And they won't go out anywhere over the, they won't leak out into any other property.
Well, we would
Okay.
make sure they
Looks
don't.
like in your house, if you have a
Okay.
motion sensor looking.
And let me clarify what we're asking for here. Are we asking for additional lighting over those spots, or just a motion sensor for the proposed lighting
Well,
nearest to
yeah,
those?
where is the nearest proposed lighting to the parking, to the residential parking?
Here's the pole. It's kind of in the middle of these parking stalls. And you've got another one mounted on the building, more so for the entrance and for the handicap
So would a
stall.
motion detector on the light you're proposing, would that be enough, do we think?
I would have to, I haven't done that on a plan, but I could look into that to see if we can do
That'd
that.
be the simplest, but I don't know if it's
Yeah.
enough.
You know, the light goes off at 10, and then the motion sensor comes on until next day, whatever the time we go on, 5 or.
Okay.
So how do we craft that condition? He's gonna,
That's a good question. So I think something along the lines of lights in the parking lot shall be turned off at 10 PM, except for the lighting for the residential spaces, which shall incorporate a motion sensor.
Activate upon motion or something.
Yeah, something along those
Fixture.
lines.
The
and-
fixture closest to those 4 spaces.
Okay. Yeah.
We can work, I'm sure we can work the language out between these 2 august attorneys.
I have.
I think we have the intent clarified, and we'll work on that language.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have one about I'm just a little unclear about the use of the inside of the building besides the office. It's sort of been described as many things, possibly storage, occasionally driving a vehicle through there, but not all the time. Like, if you can drive a vehicle through there sometimes, why wouldn't you park 2 commercial vehicles in there in tandem every day and eliminate 2 of the commercial spaces and make that just a little bit easier to say, well, we're not asking for 6 commercial spaces, we're asking for 4. I mean, it seems like it's going to be used for parking at times.
That question came up on December 4th.
Yeah, I don't
And our
remember an
applicant
answer.
explained the dominant use of the inside of the building will be storage, and it has to be. We expect vehicular use of the building inside to be very light. When that happens, they're gonna have to move their storage out of the way and move cars around.
So there's that much storage that is needed for that building and the garage and the dormer for painting.
I've been in the buildings, the answer is yes. Yep. There's a lot going on.
When I walked by the other day, it looked like there was a vehicle inside the building covered. Is there currently a vehicle being stored, like an antique vehicle, inside the building?
I haven't seen one.
So we are storing vehicles in the garage. Is there gasoline in the car that's when it's stored?
I don't know, we could pull our applicant up if you want.
No, I'm just, when I walk by, it's kind of contradictory. I don't want to beat this to death. I mean, I understand what's going on here, but if you're going to store vehicles, occasionally, there's one in there with a tarp over it, which looks like it's being stored. So it's kind of contradictory to what the testimony is.
Is the intention, Tom, do you want to come back up for a second?
He's going to have to come up and be sworn.
He's been
He's been
sworn.
sworn.
He was sworn, he remains
I'm
under oath.
just sorry, just,
All good.
we're getting to 10:15, guys.
Is the intention to store vehicles inside
No,
or no? It's
that's not the
storage?
intention.
Okay,
It's
so
it's
the
really
car that's
storage.
in there won't be in there.
Very temporary.
Well,
And that's not a commercial vehicle, by the way. No, that's not there anymore. It's another vehicle. It's not a commercial vehicle. It's very temporary.
will the blue station wagon be moved off the lot?
Yes,
If so,
yes,
where
it
to?
will. The 1966 Country Squire will be moved.
Yeah, let's see that.
That's the old
It's going home, huh?
carbon
Yeah.
monoxide killer in the back.
Yeah, but it's still got a lot of charm, doesn't it?
Okay, other questions?
I did have one when you were citing pages of the master plan. It's hard to follow along on my phone. Were you looking at the 2000 or the 2016? And if it was the 2000, it's broken into sections, so there's like 2 Roman numerals followed by Arabic numerals.
So I looked at both, I think it's 2006 and 2016.
Okay.
And 2016, by and
Okay.
large, carries over the ones from 2006.
Right, okay.
Okay. And I wrote, I mean, just if you want to be clear, goal 1 on page
Right.
6,
Yes,
okay?
Got it.
And I was just trying to move things along, I'm
Sure.
sorry, but, and the remark about effective transition
right, right.
zones is goal 1, page 6, that's a repeat,
Mhm.
and objective 1.04 on page 11.
Thank you.
One more question for you. We talked about, you just mentioned effective transition, which I would assume means that we're trying to buffer residential properties from commercial. Are we not moving that buffer, that R6 lot is a transition lot?
Right.
Are we not taking that effective transition and reducing it with your variance request?
I
We're
think-
putting parking in that spot, which is kind of setting a,
Right.
besides that and the commercial, number of commercial vehicles, are we setting I don't want to say standard, but we're moving that buffer. So how many times are we going to keep moving that buffer? Like, we just put a liquor store up the block. It was a different, it's still a business zone, I would assume.
Right.
But now.
Yeah, otherwise I would have been here and it wasn't.
Correct, right. So it butts up to another neighboring residential property. What we're doing here, what you're asking us to do is effectively move that buffer and make it narrower.
I would, you can look at that one of 2 ways. We're making it narrower because we're moving the commercial parking onto the lot. But that's why we got Mr. Olivo involved, because coming from the residential property line at 7 Lowell Avenue, we're moving the buffer and making it 20 feet wider. So the transition zone, if defined by the buffer, has been improved dramatically. Okay? And this is what you have to weigh, okay?
Yeah.
You know, the ask
That's why we're
here
here.
is, fix the parking,
Yeah.
and how do we fix the parking without being a blight on the neighborhood? And that's why Mr. Oliva stuffed this thing with plant material and fencing and everything
No, it's a
else.
fantastic plan. I'm very envious of the plan. But Mike, like, just looking at this picture alone, you can tell that the buffer is more than 20 feet
The
in
existing.
a roundabout way.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the storage one more time. Because you were showing the pictures of the garage. Are there any pictures of the first floor of the garage? Or, you know, there was some testimony about that in December, but, you know, the upstairs didn't seem like bursting with stuff. So I'm just wondering about like really the need for that dormer, because as the testimony provided, you know, the landscaping is practically going to screen dormer. Really, where it's situated, you're really not gonna see it very much from the road anyway, so the argument of symmetry doesn't really resonate with me. And I actually don't, from the presentation and then also seeing a car parked inside the facility, not really seeing a lot of painting supplies or anything inside the building. I'm just wondering, is this actually needed? And are there any plans, later down the road, what happens here if we merge these two lots and now they're 60% sort of, lot coverage? Is that R6 lot coverage always going to apply with that now it's 53%?
Unless it's changed by the council.
Okay, so if you come back and say, we're gonna change this, or we're gonna make this another apartment or something like, that's another,
It's
that's another variance.
Another
and all that.
application.
Yeah,
It's another application, and we'll be talking about
yeah, for
dormer
hours.
again.
Yeah,
The other thing I just wanted to say is there's no storage in the garage right now because the roof is in such bad condition that it's leaking, so he's not putting anything in there because it would all get damaged in the garage.
so where is everything being stored? Where are all the painting supplies right now being stored? If we can't, but there's vehicles in the main building. So I'm still wondering why we can't park any vehicles in the building. It just doesn't seem like all this storage is being,
Understand, there's a lot of storage in the main building. A lot of storage in the main building, so, that's where it is. And there is some storage on the ground floor of the garage. I didn't photograph that, but there's storage down there also.
Okay.
One more thing, Chairman Steiner. With the addition of the commercial dumpster, has there been any consideration about pickup times as opposed to 4 o'clock in the morning? Because I actually deal with that where I live. I'm behind a commercial structure, and 4 o'clock in the morning, the truck shows up every Tuesday.
So it's a common question, as you might imagine, and we could, check with our vendor and adjust times. I don't know when they come to the site now. We do know the apartments on the site are just being
Handled by the city.
City,
Correct.
exactly.
Yep. So is there a commercial vendor now picking up at the site? Or is that an addition?
Right now, it's the city.
Okay. So there will be another vehicle, another truck coming through. Which means he's got to back
Okay,
down.
last
back up
chance
along.
for questions from the board.
Okay, I'm done.
I'm only looking at this side now.
Turn his back to us.
Okay, to the public, are there any questions for this witness from the public? Looks like we've gotten more public than we had before. Welcome. Any other questions? None? Okay, would you like to provide a summary and closing statement?
A very quick summary. I just want to thank the board for hearing the presentation tonight. The applicant and experts have provided compelling testimony in support of the relief requested, and Mr. Tolia has thoughtfully and thoroughly outlined the planning rationale and proofs for the variances sought in connection with this proposal. So I'm not going to restate and reiterate what's already been said during the course of the hearing, but rather just happy to answer any questions if the board has any.
Okay, thank you. Are there any people in the audience that wish to come and make a comment or express an opinion on this particular application? I'm looking twice. Okay, seeing none, can we get to our conditions and the number of votes required?
Yes, we can. With D variances, we require 5 votes to get an approval. The conditions have mostly already been discussed. I think I caught one that wasn't explicitly noted yet that we do need to confirm. So 9 total so far. 1 is compliance with the conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum. 2 is the applicant shall submit the new stormwater management system calculations to the board engineer for review and approval. 3 is the one that I had noted but wasn't specifically addressed. We talked about reducing the width of, I believe it was parking space number 11, down to 9 feet. Is that accurate of what we were going for? And I assume the applicants made that representation. Are you okay with accepting that as a condition? Okay. Fourth, the applicant will add curbing to prevent parking in the 8-foot space between the building and the commercial parking spaces. Fifth, the applicant shall submit the garage calculations to the zoning officer for review and approval. Sixth, there shall be no outside storage on the property. Seventh is that the lights in the parking lot shall be turned off at 10 p.m. Lights for the residential spaces shall remain on with a motion sensor to be utilized for the light closest to the residential spaces. Number 8, there shall be no parking in front of the garage bay, and there shall be exit only from the building. Signage shall be added indicating that parking is in the rear of the site. And the 9th and final condition I have noted is that the 6 commercial vehicles to be parked on the site shall be limited to commercial vans with a height of not more than 7 feet.
You're okay with all of those?
Yes.
You don't have anything more than that?
I do not.
Okay, who would like to open up the, Tom, you've been taking copious notes all night, I'm watching it. You want to take a
Sure,
shot at it?
absolutely. This is the kind of application we need to, I think, be very sensitive to, because it's a business right next to the beginning of a significant residential neighborhood. So I think we need to be extra sensitive because of that. What this application has going in favor of it are several things. The primary use of the property is not going to change. So I don't see any negative impact on the neighborhood from that, or at least not more negative than it is now, if it is negative now. It would be certainly a significant aesthetic improvement to the property. You know, the look, the landscaping plan, you know, contributes a lot to that, but it's going to be very large aesthetic improvement to the appearance and visibility of the property. Parking is going to be made much more delineated versus the chaos that seems to be going on there now. You know, I am concerned about the parking 6 commercial vehicles when 1 is permitted. That seems to be a big leap, but I think the applicant and their planning expert made a compelling argument that it's justified in this circumstance, and the significant screening will minimize the impact of that. I also think the hanging sign is justified by the greater visibility. You know, drivers won't have to be craning their neck to see what's going on. I think it's safer to have the hanging sign. I already said it's not going to be, I don't think it'll be substantial detriment to the neighborhood. And actually, I think it will enhance the neighborhood, because I think you turn on Lowell now, it's a very unattractive property. You turn on Lowell when this is done, it's going to be a very attractive property. So I think it actually enhances people who are going to be driving through their neighborhood. So I can enthusiastically support this.
And just for, I guess, Tom or anybody else who would like to comment, I would like to also hear your thoughts on, you've heard the term that the site is particularly suited to the proposed use. That's required because it's a D1 use variance. So I do want to get some opinion from the board on whether it is particularly suited to the proposal.
Well, is it useful to say it's particularly suited because it's been suited for many decades to
Yeah.
have some kind of a business there, and then we're used to having it there? Is that,
That helps.
that's a good argument? Okay, I will make that argument.
Anyone else?
I think, you know, this plan, most of this plan makes a lot of sense. I appreciate sort of the concessions about the parking. I think the landscaping is great. You know, to be honest, this site for many years, for as long as I've probably been going to Magic Fountain, has looked a bit of an eyesore, right, in terms of what is going on with the parking there, and it is chaos, I think, as Tom said. So I do like the organization, the fact that a lot of this is going to be screened. I'm not sure, the tandem parking is also not allowed. And I don't really know, you know, what the reasoning behind that is, but I know that's, so it's 1 commercial vehicle, and nobody mentioned that, but I mean, it was in the notes, but tandem parking is also not allowed. So it's really 2 different things regarding the commercial parking, so that's something that I guess we also have to weigh it. And is that just for the inconvenience, like you're testifying that you will be able to handle this and manage the vehicles coming in and out of the site and moving everything around? And if, so I think I can get around that. I'm sort of not in favor of the hanging sign. I think it's too big. I think that the existing sign is sort of, yeah, it's vintage. If the business were still there, it would be kind of cool, old vintage sign. But now you're doing so much work here to bring it up to sort of standard. I feel like the sign should be something that meets the code, and should be just on the building. I mean, it's cute, but it doesn't meet the code, and it's, you know, not super, I think people can still know where the painting, you know, TJ Painting is located without the sign hanging perpendicular. So that would be the one thing that I would like to see changed.
Okay, anyone else want to hop in? Let's try this side.
I'll jump in. I think it's a really thoughtful plan. It'll be really nice to see, you know, the improvements made to the property. It is a bit of an eyesore. The cars are parked there today, and to me, nothing's really changing in the use of the building. It's just going to be more organized, more efficient, and quite honestly, it's nice to see the small business remain in Summit, and make these types of investments, improvements in Summit while they're staying here. So I'm supportive.
I agree that this would be a huge improvement. I can't get past the D1 variance requirements. Summit is, at this point, almost fully built up. There is a crying need for housing in a way that there was not 70 years ago when this use first began. And in fact, goal 4 of the master plan revision says, promote a city that's welcoming to residents of all ages, races, ethnicities, abilities, and income ranges. This is an income range. The R6 zone addresses an income range where we really need housing. One of the outcomes for Plan 4 is to increase housing options for young adults, empty nesters, and seniors. Again, the R6 zone is ideally suited for that. And I cannot sign on to I'm splitting an infinitive. Permanently to remove a prime piece of R6 real estate from the housing stock. So I'm going to have to vote against this.
Okay, anyone else?
I'm struggling with two things, along with my cohort here. We're moving the buffer, and it is a residential zone. It is, a residential lot. And what happened, well, we're asking for a request for 6 commercial vehicles. We're only allowed to have 1. Are we tweaking this too much? And what happens when you need 8? What happens when you need 10? What happens when somebody else comes along and says, well, we need 12? Where do we draw the line? Those are the 2 things that I can't overcome. However, the positives are very positive. I mean, it's going to look fantastic. It's, you know, I won't recognize, if I closed my eyes and drove down Morris Avenue and this was done, I wouldn't recognize it in that area of town. And continued use, it's going to be the same, so it's not changing. It's just being more organized. I got to make a decision if the 2, what I believe to be 2 negatives outweigh the positives. That's all I have to think about. All right, so I'm not going to give my opinion right this second. I'll wait till the vote.
Anyone else want to?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a huge improvement to that corner. I think it is, you know, right now it just looks like an asphalt jungle with all the cars and the mess in the front and the side. I like the idea that there is no increase to the building. We have enough overdevelopment, and I don't want to see anything being developed. So the fact that they're leaving the Lowell Avenue piece of property with just the garage is a positive thing to me. The only thing I just don't understand is the lighting until 10. I still don't understand that aspect. If the building's done, if the business is done at 5, you really only need the lights for the tenants. So I don't really understand why the back part of the parking lot really needs to be lit up after business hours. But I think the landscape plan is excellent. I think the view from, from everywhere, all around, I think it's going to be good, and we're happy to see a small business, put money back into the town in a nice way.
Mr. Gincoli?
Well, I've been driving past that building for 52 years. And from what's being proposed here, to me, it just seems like an overall improvement to the whole general view of it. It just improves the site tremendously. And I'm not too concerned about the buffer part because, Magic Fountain is right across the street, and that thing's pretty well lit up at night in the summertime. So I believe it's open later than 10 o'clock also, and that's pretty well lit up. So I don't think that's too much different than what they're asking for here. And the property that's on Lowell, next to the Magic Fountain, there is no buffer. Cars are parked right up to that property. So, to me, there's just too many positives.
I'm just going to add a little bit more. I think for me, this major selling point is that it is such a major improvement. And, I hear Claire's concern about residential, use, but at least the 2 units are staying there, and I think the ship has sailed on Lot 4 ever being residential. So I certainly hear the concern, but, I'm not sure how realistic it is to expect that could ever be residential the way the use is now. It's basically, it's such a huge improvement over what's there now that that's really the overall explanation why I'm in favor of it.
Well, having heard everyone else, I'll tell you my thoughts. I am looking at this. First of all, we're gang parking all these commercial vehicles, and I haven't figured out yet, and nobody testified as to how they're going to get out. Does everybody leave at 9 and 9:01, and they're all going to pull their trucks out? I don't know where their cars are going to go, but they're going to pull all their trucks out and then pull all their cars in. We're going to have a wonderful mess there at that point. But I also have to tell you, I'm guilty of parking in that parking lot to go to Magic Fountain, because if there's a space there, I'm taking it. But I do have a problem with putting the lots together. And I think that although the landscaping is great, the concept is good, I'm not sure that it gives us what the master plan tells us we should have, and nor does it handle all the parking the way we should be. We didn't get an answer about the cars in the building today that apparently are there, and all the storage is there. And I guess what they're doing at this point is they're cutting down in order to be able to get everything in there that they need right now, and having less storage, buying fewer things at this point in order to get down to wait to see what we do. And now that we're going to do it, they'll have to move forward with this. I'm really afraid that I'm not going to be able to support this one. But I would entertain a motion.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Because I haven't been to that many zoning meetings, let's just say there's a vote, can you go over what happens if this, say, doesn't pass? What then?
Their application is denied, and a motion.
And a different application can be put in
And a
after,
different
or-
application
yeah.
could become, sometimes we get a request before we vote to do something, if think there's a way that they could improve the application before we vote, but that's not something that I've heard at this point, so we will go.
Sorry.
Did you?
No, I have a question, I'm sorry. Joe, you were saying, Chairman Steiner, you were saying that it's combining the properties, but I thought that it was very clear that it's not, that there's
Well,
still.
it will never be used as separate properties
And
again.
let me weigh in. They are applying to combine the two lots into a single lot, but that does not affect the zoning. The zoning boundary still actually cuts through what is proposed to be now a single lot.
So if the property sells, can the next owner say, okay, on the R6, the residential, I'm gonna build a
R6
house, and can they change it?
The R6 portion remains R6. They would have, if that was the proposal, they would have to then subdivide what is now going to be, if this is approved, a combined lot to allow for the, R6 use as residential again.
So by combining them now, even though they kept separate zoning, is it make it easier for the next step, for somebody to buy it, to combine it? Like, are we working, inching our way towards where it could be an one commercial lot?
It's a separate process to go get that approval from the governing body to change the zoning boundary. That can happen irrelevant of what happens here tonight.
Okay? Did you have a?
We just have a moment, is that okay to?
All right, what we'll do is we'll table this for a minute. We will continue with our resolutions and other business, and I'll come back to you very shortly. We'll go to Stephanie and ask her to handle the resolutions at this time.
Sure. The first resolution we have is 155 Canoe Brook Parkway. That's ZB-23-2221, Block 511, Lot 6, Nancy Del Pizzo and Carol Sorcelli. Our eligible voting members are Chairman Steiner, Vice Chairman Loikitz, Mr. Yuko, Mr. Nelson, Ms. Zahn, Mr. Malay, and Ms. Toth. Can we have a motion?
Moved.
And a
Second.
Okay. Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Chairman Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Zahn,
Yes.
Ms. Toth.
Yes.
The motion carries. Okay. The next resolution we have is 19 Oakley Avenue, ZB-23-2220, Block 1703, Lot 4, Stephen and Solange Burgermeister. The eligible voting members are Chairman Steiner, Vice Chairman Loikitz, Mr. Yuko, Mr. Nelson, Ms. Zahn, Mr. Malay, and Ms. Toth. Would someone like to move that?
I'll move it.
Second.
I'm sorry, who's second?
Second.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Chairman Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Zahn,
Yes.
Ms. Toth.
Yes.
The motion carries. Our last resolution we have is 16 Edgewood Road, ZB-23-2219, Block 3402, Lot 14, Brett and Amanda Newman. Our eligible voting members are Chairman Steiner, Vice Chairman Loikitz, Mr. Yuko, Mr. Nelson, Ms. Zahn, Mr. Malay, and Ms. Toth. Would someone like to move that one?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Chairman Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Zahn. Ms. Zahn?
Am I just reaffirming what I voted, or am I approving?
You're voting to approve the resolution.
The resolution is presented to you.
For Edgewood.
So if I voted against it, what do I say no, or do I say yes?
If you voted against the
Oh, you know
application, then
what?
you can't
Yeah.
vote for the
Oh,
resolution.
I'm sorry, yeah, I
That's what I
missed
was
that,
saying.
you're
That's why
right.
I was-
Okay,
yeah.
yes.
Thanks for clarifying.
Sorry about that. So Ms. Zahn was not an eligible voting member. And Ms. Toth.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. So next we'll do the minutes for approval. The minutes we have are from February 5th, 2024. Everyone who was present for that meeting can participate in the voice vote. The only members excused from that meeting were Vice Chairman Loiketz and Mr. Feskin, who are not here at this meeting. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a-
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Okay, we have had requests from the governing body to look at two items. One is the committee appointment to the Shade Tree Advisory Committee, and I am pleased to advise that Ms. Zahn has agreed to take on that role. I believe we don't need a resolution, it's something the chair can do. And secondly, the council has appointed Scott, our Vice Chairman Scott, to the Mount Laurel Subcommittee on Affordable Housing, and I understand there's a resolution that we are required to pass, even though they've named him. I'm not sure how that works, but that's it. So we would look for a motion to confirm our approval of Scott to the Mount Laurel Subcommittee on Affordable Housing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And we'll do a roll call vote. Chairman Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Ms. Zahn?
Yes.
Mr. Kieran?
Yes.
Ms. Toth?
Yes.
Ms. Chifo?
Yes.
Mr. Chanchuli?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, Scott's supposed to be here and was going to be here to talk about the annual report. He has the flu. He is not here. What I can tell you is that he and I will start writing it and move forward as quickly and expeditiously. So you have one more shot at getting Scott any comments that you may have before we start writing this thing up.
So did you send them my comments? Because I just sent them.
And
I sent them on to him.
Mine?
Yes, and
About,
I'll make sure that they're certainly
setbacks
included in that.
and
And I believe we'll go back to our application.
So
our-
we've spoken, and I guess can we request an adjournment to come back and make some modifications based on the comments that we heard from the board members?
Okay, what's our next available date, if any?
So how long do you think you'll need?
Minimal amount of time.
Minimal amount of time.
Ballpark.
When is the next available meeting?
So I could probably get you in on April 15th.
But it would have to be.
It would
say,
have to,
but-
assuming that it's fairly quick.
And would they be last on the agenda or first?
I could put
Or
them
minute.
first if you can get it done quickly.
We give them a half hour, and if they don't make it, we adjourn them till the end?
That sounds fine.
How does that
April
work for you?
15th is fine.
Okay, is anyone, okay, so we would need a motion to carry this forward, and you would be granting the board time to act and
Yes.
the
Right.
notice and all,
I assume it's without further notice.
and without further notice, because the public that was here, which wasn't. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion based on the applicant's request to.
Okay.
postpone.
Second from Tom.
Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Ms. Zahn?
Yes.
Mr. Kieran?
Yes.
Ms. Toth?
Yes.
Ms. Chifo?
Yes.
Chairman Steiner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, and just a reminder that we have some training coming up, that you've all been given some dates, and the 15th is one of them, right? Yeah, so the 15th can't be long, for sure. Okay, then we would look for a motion to adjourn till our next meeting on March 4th.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm sorry, did someone second?
I'll second it.
So is that training on the 15th going to be after or before?
I was just gonna say.